This show is sponsored by BetterHelp Online Therapy. Without a healthy mind, being happy is hard. Visit betterhelp.com/kindafunny and see if online therapy is for you.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to PSILY XOXO, episode 81. I'm one of your hosts, Greg Miller, alongside the future class of video games, Blessing Adeoye Jr.
Greg, it just hit me that we're at episode 81.
81, Blessing.
That's a lot of
for
episodes.
81 weeks, that means.
That's wild. It feels surreal because I feel like episode 1 was just last week still.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, of course it does. How does it feel to be so established now? Episode 100 on the horizon in December.
Yeah. Wow, really? Oh, man. We talked about that a few weeks ago because we were making jokes about, half jokes about doing PSX. I was completely serious. But yeah, that still feels wild. I feel like episode 100 of a podcast is usually a like monumental, like, oh, we did it. Like this is a podcast now. And so to be so close to it feels still kind of weird because I still feel fresh on this podcast. I don't know what it is. I don't know if I'll ever feel like truly like, oh yeah, I've been doing this forever now, right? I don't know how, like, do you feel a similar way, or do you feel like just like, yeah, this is business as usual now? Like PS Love You is its established thing in this new form, newish
Good question. Hold on, I'm gonna crack this.
Oh, what is that?
What are you cracking open there, Daddy?
I got some Equator coffee, not Busan, but it's got like the Black Panther kind of thing happening on it. So I was all about
like,
it.
Do you think it'll hit like Busan?
I mean, it's one of those things. Few things in the world can hit like a good.
I was just saying, can
Busan
anything hit like
coffee
Busan?
straight from Korea? But we'll see what this one will do for me if it give me some juice in here. Ah, man, that's a great question. Very introspective, Blessing. I like it a lot. The struggle I have, and I would assume to some degree you have in a different way, is that this is PSILY XOXO is like such a pandemic podcast where, you know what I mean? Like we brought you on full time and started the show, and then what we got into March. And then
so it was like
broke loose, we ran home.
10
right?
episodes
like
in.
10 episodes.
Right? So it's like, I think we definitely, I love this show. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's one of those things that, you know, I think what's been interesting when I talk about PSILY now, right, to people, especially when we were talking about, like, you know, that week, a couple weeks ago, where I forget what it was now, but PlayStation News broke the morning we put it out. And like, of course, that happens no matter what podcast you have, no matter when you put out any podcast. But I had this conversation on Reddit and maybe in the comments even of just like, well, you know, you have to remember, of course, that like when we retired PS I Love You the first time and put it up into the rafters, that was then the DNA we took into Games Daily to make that show every day to cover breaking news. So when you came and joined us and you said you wanted to restart PS I Love You, I was all for it, but I knew the show needed to be different, right? And so it's why the first half of the show is always this giant topic of the show, right? Where it is this long conversation that only a PlayStation nerd would want to hang out for or some video game nerd would want to hang out for. And I love that. I love the discussions we've had. I love the conversations we've had. You know, of course, Jana Garcia has been an excellent addition as we get ready for my paternity leave and bringing her in, having this perspective. Of course, sadly, she was bit by a snake in both eyes. So she is off this episode. I know. So it's
the same snake that bit me, which is crazy.
There's one snake that
gets around.
People just pass it
California.
Around. People keep mailing it to each other on kind of funny to see what happens, right? But it's been awesome to have this show that is, I think it's so simple. And I've talked about this a million times of when we started Kind of Funny, and we were doing it in front of the stupid fake brick walls that Alexis Pence had given us when she did a Victoria's Secret live stream with Nick. Like we started moving the desk around and changing the paintings because we're like, oh shit, like eventually people are going to realize it's just the same group of people talking about the same different things with a different coat of paint on it, right? And I think we're in a very special place right now as Kind of Funny where the shows all have their own identity, where Gamescast is not Games Daily and Games Daily is not PSILY and PSILY is not the Xcast. And I think that's been refreshing and cool and interesting. And to do this version of PSILY, right? Every time we come in on a Monday and sit down to record, I am excited. And I do have that feeling of, I don't know where the show is going to go. We have a topic of the show and it could be something we talk about for 15, 30 minutes. It could be something that goes on for an hour plus, right? And I think that's powerful. And I also think it goes to the fact that they go on so long often, because we don't try to hit 2 hours on PS I Love You, right? It just happens. I think when we first started, we might have said, oh, we'll try to do that, and like now it's just how the
I
show
think like the plan was like, yeah, for the first few episodes, let's give them as much as possible so they can appreciate it, and somehow that just kept going to where I think there were a few weeks there where we were like, all right, let's try to do a shorter episode because toward the end of the episodes we'd be tired, but we still keep going because I think that's the kind of show this is, and that's for me why I appreciate the show so much, because each show we have here on Kind of Funny Games, I look forward to in very different ways. But PS Love You, I don't know if it's the format of the show or the chemistry of the show or all of the above, but I do look forward to the show in a different way than I look forward to doing other shows. Like, I, of course, look forward to doing KFGD with Tim. I look forward to doing Gamescast when we have a fun topic or a review to do. But I think back to your point about the show, ending up being 2 hours every single week, there's something about, I think, the freedom and the premise of the show being, hey, let's just talk about PlayStation and kick it, and it not being the strict, let's talk about PlayStation news, let's talk about this. Like, I like to sprinkle that in there because I know there are people that don't listen to Games Daily that might be PlayStation fans that are looking forward to those PlayStation updates, but that's not necessarily what the show is. And I think even in the pandemic era of PS Love You and Kind of Funny Games, that for this show was probably a big challenge in terms of making it really identify separate from the set and the vibes and the look and everything else. Us being able to find the voice outside of all of that with just the conversations we're having, I think has made it into a very special thing. And I think that I've always at this point looked forward to doing every single week. And so I guess to that original question, like, I think it has found such a good identity as that, which I love.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's, again, what's interesting about it, but then so bewildering about it, where it does feel like a show that, 81 already? Are you kidding me? It feels like we just started because we are in this unprecedented time to be alive where time doesn't matter and you're way more worried about something happening outside than you are about what's happening in your own career, your job, or whatever. And I feel like, it's this bizarre thing with you and me even, right? Where it's like obviously we work together every day and we do this show and a bunch of other shows together, but it's that thing of like, I've expressed it to so many people of, this is how I know you. Like, you moved here and like in a real world, right? If in a normal 2020, you would have moved here and we would have gone to E3 together, which means we would have gone out for drinks or a dinner or this. We would have gone on some PlayStation press tour and you would have gotten to meet all these people and we would have done this thing. And we would have, gotten crazy with Cory Barlog or something, but like instead it's like you and I show up for the show and we just talk to each other about video games and PlayStation, and then we bounce, which is great again for, I think, making this show feel so different, but then also totally fucked up of not knowing each other outside of work.
Yeah, that's the exciting thing about when next year comes, we're able to get back into the studio, right? Like, it's going to go from 90 to 95% of our interactions being on shows to then it shifting way down to, okay, yeah, we're hanging out in the office, or hey, we got a preview event to go to, or E3 or whatever the thing is. I very much look forward to that, to the point to where now I have it's that double-edged sword of me being both excited to go into the new studio when we finally get back in there, to also being kind of nervous and anxious about it because, we have built now this cadence of knowing what the show is now and knowing what Kind of Funny is now and me knowing machine. It's a well-oiled machine now, and it was such an adjustment period in the first year of the pandemic to finally get there. But now that we're there, I'm like, yeah, I'm comfortable now. Like, I know how all this goes. I'm excited to finally get back in the studio to see how that changes things. But then also, I think a part of me is gonna miss like being able to do the shows from home and having it be this easy thing of cool, wrapped up on KFGD. I'm gonna eat lunch real quick, get back on PS Love You, and I know exactly what the cadence is of the show. Doing it on Discord, doing it with the pauses and the technical difficulties and all that stuff. Knowing how all that stuff fits in and being able to roll with it, I might miss that a little bit if I'm being honest.
Well, yeah, it's all It's all we know. It's all we've known for so long, right? Yeah, like it's totally, a weird, crazy thing to think about going back to the office in 2022 for Kind of Funny Day, of course, January. Can't wait. And not even going back to the office, going to the brand spanking new office and the new studio and stuff like that. But it is the idea of like, I was thinking about it last week. Last week, my schedule got all shifted and I was like, not showering in the morning anymore. Like I was like waking up, doing my hair, whatever, sitting right into shows, sitting right into calls, right into production stuff, and then showering like in the late afternoon, if not evening. And it's like, what a weird thing of like, that's not, I can just like do that. I can wear shorts, it's the same stuff everybody's been doing from work from home pandemic, but it is like, again, so comfortable and the new normal of like what it is to shake that up and go. But I do think since all the days just fly by and feel the same. The fact that you're on episode 81. We've already covered the launch of a PlayStation console. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's like so bewildering that this is
like so many PlayStation Studios games have released, right?
Yeah.
Like since the start of this, we got Last of Us, we got Ghost, we got Astro, we got a new console, we got a Spider-Man. Like pretty much anything that could happen on in the PlayStation ecosystem has happened while we've been sitting here at home doing the show, which is again crazy to think about. And you know, I look forward to continuing it.
Midday showers are great. I'm just gonna say.
Yeah, no. It's just a weird thing of like being able to think about that. You know,
I need that morning shower. I can't do. I if I don't shower before a show, I'm gonna be just zombie-ish.
What I've had is this new visceral reaction though, where I don't know. These last few weeks we're working on a big project, and I feel like I'm in like the vice where like the screws are being tightened on what we're doing, and there's just so much where it's like I'm like showers are a waste of time. Like I can't do that right now. I can use those extra 15-20 minutes right now in the front of the day to do this to make the back half of the day easier to get a shower later on to get the thing.
You just got to do a quick shower. Just get in there, get out.
I'm in there to enjoy myself. You know what I mean? I got a lot more ground to cover than you. All right, this is a longer experience for me to get showered. All right.
I'm just saying you can always take 2 showers in a day. The morning one being the quick one, the evening one being the all right. Let's get in there.
Yeah. Okay, that's interesting.
Just some ideas. Just some ideas. This morning was one of those ones where usually I have 2 alarms. I have one for 7 and one for 7:30. And usually like I'll end up just waiting for the one at 7:30. Today was one of those days where I woke up at 7 and I was like, you know what, man. Let's take the day by the horns. Let's wake up at 7, take a quick shower, brush my teeth, and get going. And let me tell you, it's nice. It's really nice.
Oh, I like it. I'm
having more in the front of the day.
Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah. But like now it's been that thing of waking up so early, like you're whatever. Like I think Portillo woke me up at 6:15 today, and it's like you're up then, and it's like well I get it right into work, and then it's like well I can stretch a little bit further, I can do this, and then who got time for the shower? Overrated. Let me just play some games. Speaking of games, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, what do you got? What do you got?
I was also going to say this is probably a conversation that I could also save for what you've been playing. But over the weekend, you've been playing a lot of Avengers for the new update and the 4XP and the free weekend and all that stuff. And I was going to mention that I was really sad that I didn't end up getting into that because my plan, because we did the Gamescast conversation last week about Marvel Future
Revolution.
What's it called? Future Revolution, yeah. And you DM'd me afterwards saying that like, oh, what you're looking for, because I expressed having a craving for getting into a Marvel game where I can just level up one of my characters and all that stuff. And I thought Future Revolution might be that game based on how you've talked about it. But you kind of unsold me on Gamescast a little bit after hearing more about it. You messaged me afterwards saying that the game you might be looking for is Marvel's Avengers. To which I
no jokes. I'm not doing a character. I'm not doing a bit.
Yeah, and I paused and I was like, I read that DM and I was like, all right, you know what? Maybe I should give it a shot because he might be right. I might jump into Avengers and realize that it might be the one for me. And so you did the whole thing. You brought me into the Avengers voice chat, and you guys played during the weekend, and I would get the notifications on my phone that you guys would be playing. And each time, I would either be busy doing laundry or doing whatever other thing. I was playing a lot of Forgotten City and other games, which I'll talk about later.
I want to hear that thoughts. I know how much you liked it before.
Yeah, and this is one of those things where I never was able to find the time, and I was very bummed out because I was like, "Fuck, man, I really did want to play Avengers," and now I think
just play Ultimate Alliance 3. Just play that.
Let him feel.
I did play Ultimate Alliance 3.
Let him feel his emotions here.
Okay.
That's the thing is, I want something that is more Avengers focused too. That's the thing I like about Marvel's Avengers. Because Ultimate Alliance, you're getting the X-Men, you're getting Ghost Rider, and a bunch of other people who I appreciate, but watching MCU stuff this last year, and I guess for the last decade, I right now have that craving for, oh man, I want to play something where I'm playing as an Iron Man or a Captain America or a Doctor Strange, who I know isn't in Avengers yet, but ideally, like I'm having that low key multiverse craving in me right now.
Yeah. I mean, do you want me to address that now? Do you want to talk about that right now? Because this
we
already set up this entire show. Can do whatever we want it to be.
I'm going to set that up as just a hanging thread that we can return to during what you've been playing and just have that conversation there.
You better make time for what you've been playing then. All right. Because we got a lot to talk about on this show. If you didn't know, ladies and gentlemen, this is PSILY XOXO. This is Kind of Funny's PlayStation podcast, where each and every Tuesday, blessing myself and occasionally Joanna Garcia come together to nerd out about all things PlayStation. If you're a PlayStation nerd and you want to be part of the show, you should go to patreon.com/kindoffunnygames. Over on patreon.com/kindoffunnygames, you can write in to be part of each and every episode of PSILY XOXO. Usually the Monday of recording, you can look for me putting out a prompt for topic of the show to get your opinion. Then hundreds of you are looking at Twitter and file the request and give me the answer I need. And you're amazing and I love you. And I can never thank you enough for supporting this show the way you all do. Remember, if you want to support it beyond just going to patreon.com/kindoffunnygames, where, of course, you can get the show ad-free. You can write in to be part of the show. You can get the show with the exclusive post show we do each and every week, as well as getting your name read, as well as getting all those benefits for the Gamescast and the Xcast. No big deal. Remember, you can go to youtube.com/kindoffunnygames. You can go to roosterteeth.com. You can go to podcast services around the globe each and every Tuesday for a new episode. Of course, if you're over there watching it on Tuesday, you're missing out on an ad-free version. You're missing out on a version with the post show. And of course, you're missing out on us recording the show live right now, of course, over on patreon.com/kindoffunnygames. Omega 3, Joshy G, L2 Larson are all watching live and having a great conversation. You could be part of it. Some housekeeping for you. Emily is Away Emily is Away 3 Part 2 is up right now on youtube.com/kindoffunnygames. It's Tim and I continuing to get drunk and try to nail this. What are we doing in this world? Where are we going? I have the two different boards over here with these relationships between all these high schoolers. We're trying to make sure we get out of this without screwing up our entire relationship. That's what it's all about, Blessing. You know what I mean?
How's it going? Are you there?
We're in a committed. Well, the problem is I drink a lot during the episodes, and then by the end, I kind of brown out on where we left off.
That's never. You should not drink and DM the girls that you're into.
Definitely not with Tim's fingers hitting the wrong buttons all the time. You can catch it youtube.com/kindoffunnygames. Of course, if you wanted to go to patreon.com/kindoffunnygames, this month's platinum tier print has been revealed. Barrett, show it. Of course, it is every month we give out a physical good. They are usually drawings by Rain. This one is in fact Nick and Porty, a Rick and Morty spinoff here that is just incredible. You can go over to patreon.com/kindoffunnygames or patreon.com/kindoffunny. Support at the platinum level. You would get this physical mailer, and of course you would get all the benefits of both Patreons. You could get your name read on this show, like our Patreon producers as well. New Patreon producers for the month: Julian, the gluten-free gamer, James Hastings, Casey Andrew, Elliot, and Brian Ward. Today, we're brought to you by Purple Mattress and Fitbod, but I'll tell you about them later. For now, let's begin the show with topic of the show. So here's where we're going to go. All right. There's been a lot of great news going around today. And when I say great news, I say not that great in terms of actually what it's saying, Blessing. Horizon's delayed. All right, cool. We're getting this beta for PS5 firmware or whatever. That's going to allow you to install the SSD. Hey, by the way, you might have to put your own heat sink in on this. You know what I mean? You want to go real PC gamer, stuff like that. And so I saw this happening, and I had the realization that I've had before. Nothing can stop the PlayStation 5's popularity, Blessing. It doesn't matter if you can't find it anywhere. You can't buy this system, right, easily at any point in time yet. Horizon's delayed. God of War is delayed. This expansion shit is totally pissing people off because it's super nerdy and why am I heat sinking? You know what I mean? However, are they charging too much for this Ghost expansion, right? Like $30 to go from PS4 to PS5 for Iki Island and all that jazz. Well, you would think any of these things would be the rake in the front lawn that somebody would step on, right? Especially when plenty of people in the industry, ourselves included on this show before, are always like, oh man, Xbox Game Pass killing it. Look at all this thing. Look at all that thing. Right? But nothing is stopping it. None of the things we talk about on this show have stopped me from playing PlayStation 5, anticipating PlayStation 5 games. It hasn't slowed them down, right? Of course, while we were in between shows here, right? PlayStation announced PlayStation 5 has sold through more than 10 million units globally since first launching on November 12th, 2020. PlayStation 5 is the fastest selling console in the company's history and continues to outpace sales of its predecessor, PlayStation 4. So, Blessing, the topic of the show is nothing can stop the PlayStation 5. Why? Why do you think PlayStation is continuing this runaway success that we're all part of, we're all hyped for, that I love, that I'm playing all the time?
I think there are a few reasons, and I think it's more of a question of where to start. And I think the place that I'm going to start is the success of PlayStation right now, I think, is aligned with just how successful the industry is right now. Like, you look at last year and the boost of interest that there is in video games and technology as a whole, right? Entertainment technology, based on the pandemic, based on people being at home and wanting to get into video games, based on that leading to shortages, based on that leading to the PlayStation and other platforms also selling out, but then also outselling any of their previous iterations. I think the right now, the video games industry is seeing such a boost, and we've talked about this a little bit over the last week and the last few years when you want to bring in the success of Xbox and the success of Nintendo Switch as well, where the Switch from 2017 till now has has sold astronomically, right? It's one of the fastest selling Nintendo systems there is, or there has been. Xbox as well. We talked about this last week. Xbox on other shows. Xbox is one of the or Xbox Series X/S is the fastest selling Xbox consoles for that family as well. There, when you bring PlayStation into it, right? I think there's kind of an aligning of everything is just selling out. Everything is selling super well. Everything is super successful right there, right now. I think you take that and you combine it also with PlayStation and what that ecosystem is, and the question of, is it as dire as it feels? I think that's where you get into that's when you get into an interesting conversation of, for me, you look at the things you mentioned, right? You look at Horizon being delayed. You look at the SSD stuff and how long it's taken for how long it's taken for any confirmation of expandable storage for the PS5 to actually get out there. And now that we have confirmation, it being somewhat of a difficult thing. You look at that. You look at other things, right? Like the upgrades for games not being as consumer friendly. You look at all this stuff, and it's like,
right, or smart delivery, right, over on Xbox, and then every time PlayStation does something, people hem and haw and make fun of it, and then what do? They all go and do it. They're still doing it. They're still going and moving their PlayStation 4 save through whatever weird system you need to do it.
You look at all that, and I think you compare it to, why are people showing up and buying PlayStations regardless and supporting the platform regardless? And I think the answer to that is, I mean, the games are there. You know, your Horizon is getting delayed, but Horizon is one game. You still look at this fall, and I will point over to Blessing Super Fun Game Release Calendar 2021, available on my Twitter. It's the pinned tweet. Patch 1.05 is available now. Barrett, you're free to bring it up if you want to bring it up.
I was about to ask you, where can people find that? I'm about to pull it up, Les. Thank you.
Awesome. You will need to figure out how to enhance though.
Oh, Blessing, don't you fucking worry, man. Don't you
hell
fucking
yeah.
You got a pro over here with Barrett Courtney on the ones.
Hell yeah. Patch 1.06 will be out pretty soon though, because there have been some updates since this last patch update. But you look at this fall, and there's still a lot of games to play. Recompile, which is a game we haven't talked about in a little while, that was a game that was revealed at the PlayStation presentation back in June 2020 when the PS5 was first revealed. That game is coming out this month. That game is coming out in August. You look at that. You look at Ghost Streamer Director's Cut, also coming out on August 20th. You look at Death Stranding, also coming out. You look at Kena Bridge of Spirits coming out in September. You look at a bunch of games, and you scroll through the list. And of course, there's a lot of these games are on other platforms as well. This isn't a PlayStation specific list, but it is a very exciting fall, no matter what platform you own. And I think that's the thing is, especially when you look at the launch slate of the PS5 compared to the previous launch slates on PlayStation consoles. If you buy a PlayStation 5, if you get your hands on one, there is something exciting to play. You can play Miles Morales. You can play Astro's Playroom. You can play Returnal. You can play Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, which is way more of an exciting year than the PS4's launch year, which had what? Killzone. Like, the PlayStation 5
first year and a half was not great.
Was not great, and the PS5 first year is great. Like without Horizon Forbidden West, and without God of War, and without the biggest exciting games. Is it perfect? No. When you bring in some of the technical stuff of the hardware, and when you bring in, like, I'm sure we'll get more detailed into the SSD and all that stuff, but when you get into that, yeah, there's more to be desired, but I don't think that speaks to a dire situation when you talk about stuff that can be fixed down the line. The SSD stuff, the SSD storage specifically, prices for that will come down over the course of the generation. And the fact that even though it is difficult, or not even that it's difficult, even though it is somewhat weird to parse out, all right, I need these specific kind of drives, I need my own heatsink, I need an X, Y, and Z thing. That stuff, that is stuff that over time I believe will be fixed.
And that's the thing about it, where I feel like there's so much to talk about, and you're nailing so much of it. But from the start, like, this is going to go back to an old Greg adage that I've talked about a million times, right? And you can apply it to Avengers stuff when people bitch about that in terms of right now, which don't mean lots to bitch about Avengers, but we'll talk about that later. The idea here of, okay, cool. It's what the example I always gave was when the Batman Arkham Knight season pass got revealed. And they said there's going to be character skins, there's going to be a Batgirl DLC, there's going to be a bunch of other stuff. And me as a Batman fan went, awesome, that's rad. I can't wait to spend money on that. And a bunch of people who I don't think ever had any intention to ever maybe even play the game flipped out that WB was charging something for and not telling you what it was and blah, 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 blah. And I'm not saying that's not maybe you do care about Batman and you did think that was a weird thing or yada, yada, yada. I'm not saying that opinion doesn't matter, but what I found so fascinating about it, and then you've heard me probably over the years apply to so many different arguments, is the fact that there's the core group that cares about it, and then there's this the wider game news, what we're all looking at large group that then has opinion about something they were never going to be a part of. And so that's one of the thing of like, when you look into this whole thing, right? Because they talked about the, what is it? The M.2 SSD support's coming in this upcoming firmware beta that they're doing, right? Along with, more importantly, that people keep pissing past, of course, the fact that you can now do your trophies vertically rather than horizontally. Way more important, personally. Way more important. But that's buried by this thing, right? Of the fact that, oh my God, and it mentions in here, you might need to put your own heatsink on it. You might need to do all this stuff. And people wanting to dunk on it or yell about it or make fun of it. And don't get me wrong. What they're saying right there, yeah, the Xbox expandable storage and plug in the back is way easier.
Yes.
But we're also splitting hairs right now of like, today when we were getting ready to go live and I was gathering news, VGC had PlayStation 5's latest compatible SSD is the cheapest yet, but still pricey. And it's talking about this gigabyte one, and the company's Gigabyte, right? And what they're putting on. It's like, there's so much. This, first off, the firmware is in beta. So like by the time it even gets out here, there'll be more information. And secondly, like, if I'm Mr. First Adopter on PlayStation stuff, right? And I'm well aware that I can wait for everybody to use this and put out their little videos and find me the one that doesn't have me solder iron out, right? Putting on a heatsink or whatever the fuck that even means. I don't even know what that means, right? Like, there's plenty of people who are going to run all this shit through the points to tell you this is the one you buy, this is the one that's plug and play, this is how you do it, and it's super easy. Yeah, boy.
So I want to dig into that specifically because I think that was a big news story over the last week, and it's worth looking at the details to be able to parse it out all, or parse through it all. And so I'm going to pull from Ari Notice at Kotaku. This was part of the PlayStation updates via the question: is PS5 storage more complicated than it needs to be? But I might as well do it here. Ari's article reads like this. Today, in a new post on the PlayStation website, Sony detailed how to expand SSD storage space for the PS5. The process is, at least to those who don't have existing experience with this kind of stuff, potentially a head spinner. Sony first confirmed storage expansion for the PS5 back in November and noted that it would use an M.2 solid-state drive. There's also the wrinkle that PS5 games need to run on an SSD. A mere hard drive simply isn't technologically cut out to run next-gen games. Though it's possible to store and play PS4 games from an external hard drive for months, PS5 users have had to work with 667.2 gigabytes of storage capacity for PS5 games. For now, the ability to expand a PS5's SSD will roll out in a system update provided to so-called beta users. First, there are some prerequisites as to what drives you can and cannot store. You're limited in capacity and can choose something that sports between 250 gigabytes and 4 terabytes of storage. The read speeds need to be at least 5,500 megabits per second. The module itself has to be one of 5 specific dimensions in length. You also need one with a specific interface. Then you'll need a heatsink, provided the drive you get doesn't have one built in. And then, yes, there's more. You'll need to partially dismantle your console by taking off the external plates, unscrewing the expansion slot cover, carefully screwing in your SSD, adjusting the spacer within, and then reinstalling the cover and plates with some added room, of which Sony recommends about 2 centimeters. On Xbox Series X/S, to expand your SSD capacity, you plug in a $219 proprietary 1 terabyte expansion card into a slot on the console, and that's what we were talking about earlier, where it is much easier on the Xbox side to just do the card and have it go that way.
My thing is, like, I agree. That is a fact. That it is much easier to buy this Xbox card and plug it in the back, right? But we're also, I think, even this paragraph breaking down how to do it on PlayStation is not purposely or whatever, but it's drawing it out a bit. Like, I slide the plates off my PlayStation. I've done that multiple times now, right? I did it when I sent my plates to Jim Lee. I did it when I went to E3 and I wanted to bring my PlayStation 5 and I bought plates that wouldn't have a Superman, art from Jim Lee on it, right? And I put those on and stuff. That's so simple. So to call that out and have it be a big thing, I'm like,
and all compared to like what you had to do for the PS4 as well, of like
right?
having to replace the hard drive, which was like even more terrifying because like you wanted to make sure that like the drive that you were gonna put in like had to have something specifically like downloaded and put on it. Yeah, and like you had to like do all this stuff, replace the original hard drive, which was like terrifying to do, and then put in the new one. And those steps were like, I would say like maybe a step or two more complicated than this. So even
Yeah.
compared to last gen, it's still a little more simplified. Is the whole question right now of like what SSDs work and stuff like a little scary? Yes, but like Greg was saying, like by the time that this is all like, there's a reason this beta is happening. There's a reason like they have people testing this stuff out right now. By the time they're confident that it's ready for the normal consumer to use, like we will have, you know, your Jeff Grubbs and like all your people like tweeting out of like Jeff
He's
Grubbs.
got kids. He's not doing
You'll
nothing.
have
You'll see
digital
it from
foundries. There will be a whole page on IGN dedicated to updating over time.
Yeah, exactly. Like, how did I figure out which hard drive? What was the best hard drive to use? I went to IGN.com and did the breakdown of like how to remove it and how to put in the new hard drive and stuff. And like, yeah, the people who are trying to dunk on all of this, like the beta stuff specifically, I thought was really tired.
If I can do a PSA real quick in this line of what we're talking about, in the live chat over on patreon.com/kindafunny games, Cowhand Fudka says, I can't believe external storage in a beta. I'm sorry. I can't believe ... External storage is in beta and it is bricking people's consoles. That is ridiculous, guys. Lol. Here's my thing about that is like, as somebody who's again, I keep reliving the same fucking matrix every console cycle of covering with PlayStation. Never, ever sign up for the PlayStation hardware betas. Like it is not a fun experience. I can't tell you the amount of PS3s and PS4s I've seen fucked up because people are testing out whatever beta firmware and it turns out nope, this doesn't work the way it's supposed to, and you have to reset your entire hard drive and fuck everything around. Like. Just don't do that. I would never in a million years when they announced this, I was like, oh, that's awesome. I can't wait for it to be launched live. Would I be the one to jump into it? And in the same breath, and granted, I guess this is back to the argument of like, why are people so loyal to PlayStation? Why are, granted, it's our job for the show and a million other things, but like, why do I play PlayStation even after the fact, right? When I was no longer hosting Beyond or PS I Love You and I was there, right? Like, I like that ecosystem. I like being there, but I also understand that like, even when these statements come out of like, all right, cool, this is the hard drive I use, like, I doubt that'll be a day one purchase for me. I'll let that go for a little bit and see what's happening. I don't like deleting and lifeboating stuff all the time, but even having all my PS4 games on an external hard drive right now has opened up so much space on the PS5 that I'm not as crowded as I once was.
And a couple of things I want to shout out as well, right? Like the Kotaku article that I pulled from Ari very much is framed as the, hey, PS5 storage expansion is complicated. Like that's where they're coming from in the article. And to Barrett's point about previous PlayStations being more of a scary thing when it comes to unscrewing your PlayStation, all that stuff, I think that is where the fear comes from. That is what strikes fear, right? Where Greg Miller was able to undo the plate and do all that stuff because he wanted to get it signed and it was a way easier experience. Where on first blush, I'm sure so many people read the fact that you have to unscrew something and go, oh shit, oh
it's
no, this is
to
gonna
the
be a
point of fucking when Gary Whitta was like trying to dunk on PS5 of like, oh, you gotta use a screwdriver to put the base on it. It's like, well, yeah, but like, come on, like you're already crossing a line at that point of being just a mainstream gamer. It's under your TV and you never think about it. If you're thinking to the point of like, man, I want more hard drive or I want more space and I want to do this, like, is tightening this thing really going to be the end of the world? Don't get me wrong. I look over at the PC tower that Kevin's built me. And like when an RTX card needs to be installed or whatever, Kevin comes and does it because I do not want to be a part of it, right? But I don't think that's the level of what you're doing here.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, my hope is that by the time we get to this thing is in its final stage and we're a couple months after it, IGN has the page and I look at the page and I'm like, okay, that's easy. I can do that. That'll only take me a few steps. I know which thing to buy. I know how to put this thing in. It already has a heatsink thing, so I don't have to worry about that. That is the place that I hope and expect that we'll get by the time we get later on with this. That said, I wish both were an option, right? Like I wish I could have it be so that I could buy a card and just plug it in, because on previous consoles, I guess the PS4 specifically, I could just plug in my 4 terabyte external hard drive and call it a day and not worry about doing any sort of complicated shit. That is part of the reason why I do like PlayStation as an ecosystem, is I don't have to worry about all of the meticulous shit. I don't have to worry about, like, you referenced PC gaming earlier, right? Like I don't have to worry about it on that level. That is appealing to me. I don't like opening up my consoles. I don't like having to research or do anything just to expand storage. And so I do wish I could have it both ways, but for what this seems like, it doesn't seem like it's going to be as big of a hassle.
That's going to be very complicated. Very complicated to use a screwdriver to undo a thing and then easily just plug in an SSD drive and screw that back in, and it's going to be rocket science, guys. It's going to be really tough.
And also there is the the thing of, you know, these hard drives are going to go down in price over the course
of
of
course.
the
They're not
generation.
proprietary, right?
They're not proprietary, so that is a benefit. You know, you're not going to be spending Vita memory card prices on these things. Hopefully, by the time you get into 5 years into the PlayStation, versus like, you know, who knows if there was a proprietary card, PlayStation could just keep the price, and you would have to pay like hundreds and hundreds of dollars on that thing just to expand your storage by 500 gigs or a terabyte.
So continuing on this, right, of like PlayStation 5 is unstoppable. And why is it unstoppable, right? I asked this question. Carson Ramirez wrote into patreon.com/kindoffunnygames and says, I think it largely comes down to Sony having a lot of momentum coming out of the PS4 era. I personally switched over to PlayStation with the 5 because I missed out on exclusives I'd hear people raving about for years. Outside of exclusives, which do count for a lot when taking this step, things just seem to be complicated with this. Things just seem to be complicated with the console. With Xbox finally seeming to have a ton of their own exclusives, which was the one thing that they were always missing, I feel like the market will be more split. I just helped a friend get a Series S as her first console because it's the best jumping on point for a new gamer, I feel. If my roommate didn't get a new Xbox, I'd definitely be trying to get one so I don't miss out on things like Game Pass. I don't think Sony's mistakes will catch up to them super soon, but at some point, Sony will need to change something, or they will, or the mistakes will catch up to them. And this is kind of the root of the argument or the question too, right?
Mhm.
Where again, like, you know, I've seen comments that PS I Love You lately has been too negative to PlayStation, right? Oh my God, like, you know, it's this, that, and the other. And I've always thought we're critical. And that's, again, goes back to what we talk about with what I think makes this show interesting is that, yeah, if we're going to talk for 2 hours about our week in the PlayStation ecosystem and what's been happening, it's going to be, as usual, critical about it and what they should do and what they should do. But it's also that thing of what does Xbox need to do, and will they ever actually be able to do it? I am the guy who's, and I don't want to say devil's advocating it, right? Where I do think that I've said for years now, Xbox keeps lining these dominoes up. And if they can ever kick them over, then PlayStation's in trouble. If every one of these studios that Xbox has starts making 9 out of 10s, 10 out of 10s, then yeah, here we go. This is going to be trouble, right? But is that ever going to happen? Like, I was super excited for the Ascent. It got me on my Xbox, right? And I played it for 2-3 nights, and I was like, all right, this didn't really hit the mark. And what did I say when I went on XCast talk about it? I was like, yeah, this is, you know, I think you could find fun in it. You could do this, that, and the other. Of course, on Games Pass, like, if you have it, what's you know, why not try it? Why not spend a weekend with it, right? But I've said that about the Medium too. like when am I gonna go in there and be like, this game is 10 out of 10, 9 out of 10? Like, yes, this is like, it's crazy that this is a steal that it's on Game Pass. And those games, of course, already exist. But for the argument I'm making right now, right? Like, Game Pass has a lot of cool stuff to go play, right? And out of any of those, I would rather play Avengers. Mm-hmm. Like, I'd rather just go play Avengers on my PlayStation, something I bought, let alone get excited for something along the lines of the next Uncharted, Horizon, God of War, wherever you want to start stacking it up like that, Bless.
Yeah, I mean, for the write-in that you just mentioned, for me, that does come back to the PlayStation 5 launching with a strong slate, and also, yeah, when I say like the success of the games industry is aligned with the success of PlayStation as well, that is me talking about how PlayStation already had that install base. PlayStation has already sold over 100 million PS4s, and how many of those folks are showing up at the launch of the PS5 to get into that ecosystem and continue to exist in that ecosystem. Like, that is going to continue no matter how you shake it up, especially when you have the games to back it up. And I think the position that Xbox has, I think, is an interesting one, because I'm not too convinced that the success of Xbox is going to shake up the success of PlayStation in any sort of way. Because going back to the news story last week, the Xbox Series X and Xbox Series S are the fastest selling Xboxes that they've had. And for Xbox, that speaks success. For Xbox, as long as Game Pass continues to be a success, that is going to speak to success. Like, Xbox has lined up those dominoes in a way, and those dominoes, I would say, are in the process of falling for them, where they're hitting on everything they need to hit. And if Halo Infinite comes out this fall, then that is going to be continued. That is going to be the continued story of Xbox and their comeback and their success this generation. And I don't know if that does anything to PlayStation aside from shift expectation and shift what the PlayStation audience wants from PlayStation, because I think we've seen it be the thing of people on the PlayStation side now being like, Hey, smart delivery seems cool. Hey, Xbox Game Pass seems cool. Hey, like, easily expandable storage seems cool. Like those things are lining up, but I don't think those things are ever going to speak toward PlayStation fans not showing up to buy the console. If anything, that might speak to maybe software sales aren't going as fast as they could because people are so used to getting games on Xbox Game Pass, or maybe that speaks to less indie games coming to PlayStation day and date at launch because there is more of an argument to just launch on Game Pass or launch on Epic Game Store or launch on Switch. I think those are the kinds of stories you might see more so than people not actually buying the console because people are already sold on the ecosystem. I assume that this generation you're going to see way more people diving into both Xbox and PlayStation as opposed to just choosing one because there is value there in both, right? And getting a Switch and possibly having a gaming laptop or something where they can play a Steam Deck or something they can play PC games on.
And so, yeah, it's the dominoes to fall, right? I wonder, and I know that obviously we're, what, a year almost, not even into this console life cycle, this generation, obviously Game Pass and getting Xbox everywhere on all your devices. We know what the Xbox marching orders are, but in terms of like, is anything gonna be able to stop the PlayStation 5? I do wonder if the fact that it's had this fucking year is enough to make sure no, like this is already a lost cause. You can't do it because it's just the fact of coming out of the gate, right, as they've already talked about, and how successful PlayStation 5 is, and the fact that Xbox is over here talking about 6.5 million Xbox Series X's sold, right, and how that's a new record for them, and yada yada yada. But then you compare it over to PlayStation's 10 million, and granted, there are supply constraints because of the pandemic and chips, and you've heard it all before, and you know why you can't get these units. But it is this thing of it's also the games, right? Like Forbes Jones writes into patreon.com/kindoffunnygames and say, people often say nowadays to go where the games you love are, and PlayStation has just that. Throw in what I think is really the most next-gen feature amongst the consoles with the triggers, and you're capitalizing on the promise of what new consoles mean to casual gamers. Games looking better and playing better than before. Maybe I'm a bit biased because I work at PlayStation, but at the end of the day, it always comes down to the games. And whether you want to say he's biased or not for like a PlayStation, working at PlayStation, in the end of the day, it comes down to games is such a salient point. And PlayStation 5's year, right, of having Miles Morales, which continues to this day to be in the NPD top 10s, right? Returnal, which is, what was it last year? Last week we talked about it where it was a mega hit. What did they call it or whatever? Mega hit. And then, in the past, since we've been off the air, right? Returnal from Housemarque, a new IP that launched to critical acclaim, has sold more than 560,000 copies since launching on April 30th, 2021, right? Then you have Ratchet and Clank, Rift Apart, right? Which they also put out and said that sold more than 1.1 million copies since releasing on June 11th, 2021. Like, I'm talking about the exclusives that make me turn on my Xbox and make me have a fun night or two with my Xbox, right? But then I talk about turning it off and coming back home to the PlayStation 5, right? Which is the ecosystem I've covered professionally for 14 years, right? But is also just where I would go choose to play my games because, again, just those three kinds of experiences sprinkled out in not even a full year, 10 months or whatever it's been, right? Since the launch of PlayStation 5, like, that's giving you those high points, right, to go through and be into. It's giving you those, what 2021 gaming is, the games you are already invested in, giving you, whether it's Borderlands 3 or Avengers, giving you the ability to just jump back in at a higher frame rate and have all this cool stuff that you can get only through the PlayStation 5. And I mean, you get through the Xbox, but you know what I mean? In terms of a modern console, right? Like, I wonder, even when, because here it is in the comment we just talked about, right, where it's this conversation of, okay, well, what happens when Halo comes out this fall, right? And was the conversation earlier or late last week with Horizon getting delayed of like, oh man, what's PlayStation got for the fall? And I go back to the same thing I said over and over again in the PlayStation 4 generation on Podcast Beyonds, right? And on Kind of Funny Gamescast. Like, it just doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter. PlayStation doesn't put out, for the most part, and there's lots of exceptions, but for the most part, their year of PlayStation isn't hinging on what they're dropping in October or what they're dropping in September. Like, that's just not how they're building out their portfolio. And again, like, you have this runaway year of all these different games that when you hopefully, knock on wood, can get a PlayStation 5 for your family, you'll have all these games to go pick up that you didn't already have. And so, yeah, Halo comes out and Halo's going to be Halo and it's going to have a lot of Halo heads come and play it. But is that going to be something that is such a banner AAA 10 out of 10 experience that it makes people go, holy shit, I need to go buy an Xbox? I don't know. I think that's a really tall order.
And also,
Yeah.
like, Halo is also going to be available on the Xbox One for so many people who own
Sure.
that generation, who can't get their hands on Series S and X's.
Yeah, and I think for PlayStation as a leading platform, you associate the story of PlayStation with third parties as well, which is why it's not such a dire thing when Horizon gets delayed to next year,
Totally.
right? Like it'd be one thing for on Switch, for example, if WarioWare, Mario Party, and Pokemon all got delayed to next year, then it's like, oh, well, what the fuck? But for PlayStation, it's like, well, yeah, okay, Horizon is delayed to 2022. There's also for this fall Deathloop. There's also Ghosts
Back 4 Blood, baby!
yeah, Back for Blood. There's also Ghosts and Death Stranding. There's also then the third party games, right? Back for Blood, Call of Duty, Battlefield, Guardians of the Galaxy. There's still a fall full of games that you can look forward to, and then leads us into the games that we're the big tentpole games that we're looking forward to for the future. You know, back to that question, they're talking about coming back for the games. And on PlayStation, you do have the promise of next year you're going to get Horizon and God of War, fingers crossed, right? Like the year after that, what, you might get a Spider-Man or an Astrobot or a Last of Us Factions. The year after that, you might get a Ghost 2. You might get like whatever. Like, there's a whole slate of there's also Gran Turismo next year, which I always forget about. There's a whole slate of games from PlayStation first party and their partnered studios that I think for us are promised, let alone stuff like VR that I always forget to talk about, because I think for a large section of the PlayStation audience, you don't plan to get VR, but you forget you have it. But like that is a thing that's going to come out and going to have games for it, right? Moss 2 is a thing that's announced as well for PlayStation, and with VR, you're going to get a whole slate of games there as well. And so like I think no matter what platform you have, but especially if you're on PlayStation, there is a sense of security there in terms of the library, and PlayStation kind of has built that Nintendo like thing of when you're getting a Switch, you know you're going to get a Mario game, you know you're going to get a Zelda game, or when you're getting a new Nintendo console, I should say, you know you're going to get a Zelda, you know you're going to get Mario Kart, you know you're going to get Mario Party, you know any new big Nintendo title that's announced usually isn't a surprising thing, but it still is exciting because that means, hey, I'm going to get Smash Brothers this fall, or hey, I'm going to get this, and that's why you show up for the platform, because you know you're going to get those games. PlayStation has now become that, to where now people are showing up to that platform because they know they're going to get a Spider-Man. They know they're going to get Uncharted or whatever the new Naughty Dog game is. They know what they can expect. And I think that alone is going to bring in an audience that is going to be committed to the platform and consistent on that platform for that.
I think, to summarize, right, there's a narrative. You know what PlayStation stands for, right? Like, I think coming off of PlayStation 4 generation, right? And this has been, a conversation you always have. I feel like when there's a new generation started of, man, you see, how often have we seen the industry leader come in second place the next time around, right? That baton passes, they learn from each other. And PlayStation 4 was, a product of learning so many lessons of the PlayStation 3 era and getting their teeth kicked down their throat and trying to figure out what their narrative was. And their narrative of, this is a machine about games for gamers, right? Led to the PlayStation 4 being a runaway success. And then to get to PlayStation 5 and have them have the same narrative, a little bit different, right? If we're going to get into who we are and what we're doing as a mainstream audience, or as a hardcore audience, looking at everything, reading everything, it is like, well, there's no Shu, there's no Adam, there's no Geo, there's no, you're not seeing that personality I always talk about, right? But PlayStation 4, as it grew, lost that personality that we saw of Mark Cerny on stage at the beginning, right? Or having Andrew House out there at the beginning, or Jack Trenton out there at the beginning, and became just, we're going to let the game speak for themselves. And again, it's this runaway success they've had. And again, where we talk about like Horizon getting delayed, right? Like, why would they worry about that? Because they've proven time and time again that what you're saying, Blessing, people pick up their PlayStation and play third party stuff on it. So every game that's being announced and, going to come out this fall is a PlayStation game, obviously with the exception of exclusives. And so that you don't have to worry about it, right? And so to be here, there is an established narrative for you as either a PlayStation fan or as somebody who's in the industry and thinking about picking up a PlayStation. It's what you're talking about, right, Bless? You're not worried that, oh man, maybe I get this PlayStation 5 and are they still going to make things as good as insert whatever game you've looked at afar, whether it be God of War, Last of Us, Uncharted, you know what I mean, Ghost. And it's like, of course they are. That's why they have this stable of studios that they're including and expanding on and doing all these things. And then if you jump to Xbox, right, I feel the narrative for Xbox for so long has been, man, they are making pro gamer decisions, gamer first decisions, and I can't wait to see these first parties start delivering. And it's that thing of like, I can't, well, how long do I have to fucking wait to see these things deliver? Like, you know what I mean? Like, don't get me wrong. I hope Halo comes out and is a, 10 out of 10 and amazing and a huge boon for 343. But like, I can understand why you look at that. You're like, oh, well, I understand what they're talking about. I understand what Game Pass is. I understand that they have these studios that are making games, but I'm going to go with these guys over here who the last generation, had a million points on the board and look like they're about to do the same thing again.
Yeah.
Do you think that makes the audience more forgiving?
On the PlayStation side?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And I think I do think that when we talk about the narrative of PlayStation and the narrative of it all, there are a couple of different narratives that run, because I think the idea of the leading platform being the guys that the next generation end up fumbling the bag.
Fuck it up, yeah.
And it ends up being it's a really interesting one, because I think historically that has been the case, and it's a pretty fun pattern to watch. But this generation, more than previous ones, I think the metric for success has changed so much when we talk about each of the platforms, especially when we talk about Xbox and how Xbox Game Pass is a thing that is as focused on PC, like the Xbox ecosystem is as focused on PC as it is on console, and it's going to live through streaming and all these other things that, for me, I look at the different narratives that exist on the platforms, and I'm like, yeah, I can make it. I can make a case any sort of way right now in terms of who you think is the leading, quote unquote, leading platform, the leading man. I can look at PlayStation, go, yeah, they have 10 million in sales, and they have the first party games, and they have X, Y, and Z. But then I think in terms of the conversation around who is making the moves and decisions that are hyping up the audience and getting people on their side. And maybe this is just a video games media thing, or maybe this is just a thing of people who are on the forums and the reset eras and video games Twitter and all this stuff. There is sway on Xbox's side, I'd say, in terms of, oh shit, like, man, look at Game Pass this month. Game Pass this week is, oh my god, damn, like this game is backwards compatible with 60 FPS boost. Oh my god. There are tons of things on that side that I could easily hear people make the argument for that, and I'd totally accept that. But I think if you're a PlayStation fan and you are the person that is loyal to the PlayStation ecosystem, or even just casually into PlayStation, right? Like, I do think that loyalty does exist because of the games and because of the big first party games. I think there is a track record there in terms of a first party slate that speaks to people following along game to game, in the way that you look at MCU. And even though Iron Man is a different movie from Ant-Man, which is a different movie from Guardians, which is a different movie from Loki the show, which is different from everything else, right? Different from What If. As MCU fans, we still show up for every single thing because we just like the ecosystem. We have trust in the producer. We have trust in this just shared universe that we're into it. I think PlayStation has over the last generation built that in a way that people are into that, and that's going to continue to allow that platform to is going to continue to build loyalty in their fan base.
I agree, and I think you nail it. I think one of the things we're talking about here, right, where again, we are so critical on this show, as you look at Xbox do something, oh man, PlayStation should do this, you should respond it. It is that idea of the way you're talking about in terms of backwards compatibility, 60 frames per second, whatever you want to throw out there, that we see video game Twitter talk about, is that you have to be reminded over and over and over again that those people, us, you listening and watching this podcast, right, are the minority. The majority doesn't give a shit about that. Like that, like you're talking, and maybe like, you talk about turning a ship, maybe that, you see those little grains of rice being put into the scale, and eventually it's going to go down where Xbox matters more, but it just doesn't. Like, again, PlayStation 5 is just unstoppable right now with good reason. You know what I mean? Again, this is meant to be both hey, this is such an interesting thing we're living through, but also like, I think it's with good reason the PlayStation 5 is killing it right now. I fucking love my PlayStation 5. It's, it's always that argument of what's your favorite console and yada, yada, yada. Like, that'll be a conversation for another day, obviously, with a lot of years of history behind it. But in terms of the quality of life, which is all I wanted out of this, when people were like, what do you want out of the PlayStation 5? I was like, I don't know, faster loads, faster downloads, all these different things. Like, the fucking thing sings. As good as remote play is, to get into something as like that, of like sitting on my couch, while Jen watches some other show on Netflix about these weird British people who are up in Alaska competing for this guy's inheritance. It's weird. But like I'm over there and I'm grinding something on Avengers but on my phone via remote play, and it's fucking 1-to-1. Like I'm not like getting artifacting like I used to on my Vita and PS3 or 4 or whatever. Like it's the fact that, yes, it has this proven track record. It's the fact that it's keeping you, giving us this first year out of the gate so many great first parties on a tentpole schedule where there are things to be looking forward to and continue to play. Like the PlayStation's ahead for a reason right now. And I think as many times as we sit there and go, oh, well, Xbox is doing this interesting or that's happening over there, like just the overwhelming, the narrative just doesn't help them. The narrative isn't moving those units. They need games, as it was pointed out here by Forbes, right? And it just ain't happening.
Yeah. And I think in terms of the criticism too, right? Like there's a certain amount of criticism that I think anybody has with anything that they love, right? Like both of us are in the PlayStation ecosystem. I've loved playing PlayStation since the PS2, and there are plenty of things that I look at, and I know that many people look at in the ecosystem where they're like, oh, I wish that was better. Like I still don't give a fuck about cards. I still am bummed out that my DualSense dies like daily when it comes to battery life. Like I legitimately had this thing fully charged yesterday, or no, during the weekend. I had it fully charged Saturday morning, and by Sunday night I was doing so much gaming during the weekend that it died, and I was like, oh yeah, this thing dies in a day if I play games nonstop. But like I look at the storage thing, and I look at plenty of things where I'm like, yeah, I wish there was a lot of things that could do better, and those are things that I don't want to excuse, even because,
of course,
again, like I think
none of this is meant to sweep anything under the rug and say PlayStation is infallible. Like obviously we've talked many a time about how many things could be better or different and everything else, but it is this fact of like, it's incredible what the PlayStation 5 is doing right now.
Oh yeah, and this is more so for the people that like either comment, they're like, oh, they're too negative or they're too positive. It's just a thing of like, yeah, there are plenty areas of gray or areas of, I like this thing, but also I don't like this thing about this thing. And that is a thing that I think exists throughout the whole audience, I would think, right? Like I remember when this time last year when we were gearing up for the PS5 and on PS4, they changed up the party system, and I remember just seeing people complain that weren't like from the most random of places on the internet. I was on TikTok scrolling, and so many TikToks were like, PlayStation's listening to you, and I'm like, wait, why is this such a big thing? I pay attention to this stuff and I don't care as much, but like people are going ham about the fact that the PlayStation is listening to you. But like those are also the same people that own a PlayStation that either play it casually or seriously, that are in the ecosystem but see a thing in the ecosystem and they're like, oh, fuck this, but also I like Spider-Man. And so and that's kind of the way that this goes. And so, for me, even though there are so many things in the PS5 and PlayStation platform that I'm like, I wish this was better. I wish, PlayStation Now was more comparable to Game Pass. I wish more indie games would come day and date to PlayStation. I wish, I wish there was more diversity in the first party slate, or whatever the comment may be. That doesn't mean that but I don't think that lends to folks being too negative or too positive. I think that's just people pointing out shit that they would wish to be better, which I think is totally fine.
Oh, 100%. I agree with you 100%. But I think it's just, occasionally you do have to stop and say, fucking wow, what a first year for PlayStation 5.
Oh, yeah.
Like, goddamn,
especially when you compare it to previous years. Like, this has been a banger first year.
Returnal.
Actually, I don't know if I've asked you this question in a while. Do you have a game of the year right now?
What a great question, Blessing. You know what I mean?
Have you thought about this?
People, here's the thing. When I've thought about it because a couple months ago, like we're right around the first half of the year, people were asking questions like that of like what it is, because you start thinking about it and getting ready for it and yada yada yada. And I do not have a runaway. You ask that question, my mind's clear, knee jerk response. Bam, here's what my answer is. If that makes sense, I think there's a lot. It is a diverse and competitive landscape this year is what I would go back to. You know what I mean? In terms of it. And so I pulled up my trophies here so I can page through real quick to make sure I'm not forgetting anything off the top of my head. Right. And as I go through it, I keep coming back to, and there's a whole statement to this, so don't bother chat me, or not even chat, you're cool. YouTube comments coming at me or whatever, is I still say Returnal. And I don't say Returnal when I said this last time this question got asked to me, and like would have been May or June or whatever. And I remember somebody in the YouTube comments being like, Greg, isn't that incredibly disingenuous? Like, you haven't beaten Returnal yet, like, but you're saying it's your game of the year. And what I mean by that, of course, is like, I'm not out here stumping for Returnal, saying Returnal is the best, hands down, we must play, yada yada yada. Like, I'm saying that from what I've played for of a bunch of different games, including Returnal. Returnal's the most like, this is God, it took to me. I love the gameplay loop. I love what's going on with it. Like, right, it's the conversation we've had many times in this podcast, so I won't say it over and over again. Right, is the fact, of course, that like missing the review because I was off that week, coming in playing that one weekend, but having to move to the next review, then coming back to it for 2 days, then going to the next review. It's gotten to that thing of like, Returnal sits on my dashboard ready for me when I'm ready to sit there and have a week of nothing else to play. When there is nothing else to do, where I can just play it night after night, do the thing and go through it and be done with it. So again, I'm not coming out saying game of the year because of, and I'm also not saying game of the year because of the ending, because of how the story all ties up, because of whatever. I'm saying game of the year because I think it has the best gameplay loop that I've played so far. I think it is the most impressive technically and the way it tells its story so far. But again, that's also then just comparing it to other stuff I have finished that I have gone through that I really enjoyed. I had a great time with Ratchet and Clank. I don't think it's game of the year. I think it's a great game that you should go play, right? I just don't think that's where it net out for me. What about you? Or what about do you understand what my argument is here? Where it's like,
oh yeah. I totally hear your argument. I think that, and I think part of that too is how games speak to us in different ways when it comes to like, oh yeah, I love this game for its gameplay loop versus this other game that really hit me with its narrative versus this other game that, I love the multiplayer in this game. I think that's why Game of the Year is such an interesting conversation, because in all of those things, I can make the argument for Returnal in terms of the gameplay loop, Chicory in terms of the narrative and the gameplay there, and then also for like Knockout City in terms of how much I love the multiplayer in that game. And for me, it's still Returnal. Like, I think the reason why I asked that question is talking about how banger of a year this is for PlayStation. When I think of Game of the Year, I think of Returnal automatically, but I also know that plenty of other people think Ratchet and Clank as well, which I think comes back to the fact that PlayStation is killing it. And I'm with you that Ratchet and Clank for me isn't like my number one. It's still in my top 3, probably top 4 if I was to really sit down and think about it. And I think that comes back to how I think competitive of a year it's been in terms of that conversation, and also in the fact that like there's not a Last of Us or a Cyberpunk before Cyberpunk was Cyberpunk, or a like a Red Dead Redemption.
I totally understand, but love the way you phrase that. Yes, 100%.
Yeah, like there's not that, which I think makes it more of a competitive.
There's not the game that makes everybody even out of the gaming sphere stop.
There's not the runaway. There's no run. There hasn't been a runaway game this year and this is again personal things. I know some people would tell you Hitman, of course. You know what I mean? Great stuff. Like I think there's a laundry list of things like that I could see getting on the list and being like, oh man, this was something really cool. This was something that was special. I think even to some extent, I guess not really, but like Outriders in terms of multiplayer, right? For me, it's Returnal and It Takes Two. Where like though when I sit there and think about like what is, and maybe even is on a given day, maybe It Takes Two would be even in front of it, but I don't connect as much with the story. That's a different conversation for a different podcast. But I totally understand it. Where I always go back to, you think about 2018, and it was God of War, it's Spider-Man, it's Red Dead. Like you're talking about like a boring ballot for many of like, oh, of course these main AAA games are going to get on that list, right? But it was also the thing of like, well, yeah, but they were all really fucking good, and you could have, as soon as you played them, you knew this was going to be on the ballot. It's still that thing where you could see is it a year where it's really a toss-up, where I feel like anybody can have it.
Yeah, and I think the closest thing to that this fall in terms of the game that everybody stops for and everybody's like, oh, this is the game, would have been Horizon, but now that Horizon's been delayed. I think the closest thing now is probably Deathloop, but I don't think Deathloop is going to be the game that everybody stops for. I think it's still going to be similar to Dishonored, where there's going to be a hardcore group of people. You're going to have me and Barrett probably, and more people than maybe a few more people than Dishonored, because Deathloop seems like it's more approachable.
Dishonored's vibe didn't do it for me. I understood what it was doing. I'm so in for Deathloop, so I am hoping this is a breakout for Arcane.
But I still do think, despite it being more approachable than Dishonored, and I would say the premise and world and all that stuff seeming a little bit more interesting than Dishonored, I still do think that's going to be one of those games. Listen, I did not like Whale Punk. I love Dishonored. Whale Punk was mad uninteresting to me. All the whale oil powers everything in the city, and then there's rats.
Unique. It's a unique world, dude. Everybody does the fucking 60 vibes now from Deathloop. All right.
I mean, that's true. You're not wrong. But
like, I do understand that there's a reason that everybody does it, because it is visually pleasing and all that stuff.
even the Deathloop folks, Arcane, I was watching an interview with them where even they were like, yeah, we're going for the Deathloop aesthetic because more people are gonna like this aesthetic than Dishonored. But yeah, I mean, to that point, right? Like, I don't think that's gonna be the runaway that like maybe a Horizon or other bit like a God of War is, right? Or a Red Dead Redemption 2 is. I think even that is going to leave a lot of room for conversation in terms of, oh yeah, like Deathloop's my game of the year, but Returnal is yours, but Chicory is yours, but Death's Door is yours. Like I think there's still going to be a lot of that. And for me, even my top two is I think probably the same as yours, where it is Returnal and It Takes Two. And It Takes Two is one that I think plenty of people are going to have high up on their list, and I wouldn't be surprised even that game is the one that ends up running away with a lot of people's game of the years.
But I mean, what's fascinating about this, and granted, yes, you're listening to a PlayStation podcast, I understand. With the exception now of what Death's Door, like you're not hearing us toss out Xbox exclusives.
That's
right.
true.
And back to the narrative of like, if you can get every game except Death's Door, that is like people are like on like, holy shit, this is something incredibly special. If you can get that all on your PlayStation.
Now you will hear me say that about Forza Horizon 5 when that comes out.
I get it's not an exclusive, but it is a title from Xbox Studios. It's Psychonauts 2.
Oh yeah.
So,
but again, and again, that's that where we get into that sticky situation of like, yeah, I'm gonna play Psychonauts on my PlayStation, right? I want the trophies, and so it's like that's this year. What about 3 years from now, right? When Double Fine's next game is an Xbox exclusive, and like that again, we're talking about dominoes, but again, we're talking about like in 3, 4, or 5 years, does that matter as much? And again, that's why Xbox is working in a different system and doing all these different things, but PlayStation has a narrative right now, and they're already delivering on it, which is fucking awesome.
Also, Ryan Paula Higgins in the chat brings up a good point. Remember, people, Cyberpunk qualifies for Game of the Year for the Game Awards this year. What are the chances? What are the chances?
0.0%.
If they had only released the PC version this year and did the same thing, or like if this year they dropped the PC version instead of last year, and they dropped it like the week before like voting ended for the Game Awards, that game would have made it into the Game Awards. Because like fresh off of that game, legitimately everybody was like, "Yo, this shit is kind of fire. Like this shit is really good." But then console versions came out, and then the bugs didn't stop appearing, and totally tanked that game's chances. I think at all for Game Awards this year. I'd be surprised to see it nominated for anything.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you as always for writing in on patreon.com/kindoffunnygames. Tell us why you think PlayStation can't be stopped. Of course, you can go there to get the show ad-free. You can get the show with the exclusive post show we do. You could be watching live just like Alex Krebs is, like Cowhand Fudka is, like Madeline Stanley is. However, most importantly, you can go there, like I said, to get the show ad-free. But guess what, Jack? You're not listening on patreon.com/kindoffunnygames. So here's a word from our sponsor.
This show is brought to you by Purple Mattress. Doesn't it seem like the world's against us from getting a good night's sleep this time of year? Heat waves, noisy neighbors, California earthquakes, stress, so much is working against us. But when you have a Purple Mattress, you can sleep cool and comfortable no matter what the world throws at you. That's because only Purple mattresses have the grid. Its unique ventilated design allows air to flow through to help you sleep cool, even when it feels like it's 1,000 degrees out. Kinda Funny's own Joey Noelle loves her Purple mattress. She sleeps like a baby, and I can tell you firsthand, she seems like a very well-rested person. Try your Purple mattress risk-free with free shipping and returns. Financing is available as well. Purple is comfort reinvented. Right now, you'll get 10% off any order of $200 or more. Go to purple.com/kindoffunny10 and use promo code kindoffunny10. That's purple.com/kindoffunny10. Promo code kindoffunny10 for 10% off any order of $200 or more. Purple.com/kindoffunny10. Promo code kindoffunny10. Terms apply. We're also brought to you by Fitbod. I started going to the gym recently, and I can tell you firsthand, doing the same workout sucks. Don't get stuck doing the same workouts. Making progress toward the future you means overcoming new challenges. There's no perfect body that everyone can achieve, but what we can do is continually become a better version of ourselves. No workout is one size fits all. Fitbod creates a fitness program that continually adapts to you, so you stay challenged with new exercises, pacing, and intensity based on where you are and where you want to be. Tim and his friends have been using Fitbod, and they've been over the moon about the results. It's a must-have for tracking your own fitness. No equipment, no worries. Fitbod has bodyweight routines for those looking to get fit at home or on the go. Pick up the pace on your fitness journey with Fitbod today, and your future self will thank you. Get 25% off your membership at fitbod.me/kfgames. That's 25% off at fitbod.me/kfgames.
Blessing, we already started cheating, but go ahead. Hit me with some PlayStation updates.
Greg, let's start off talking about Team Asobi because they're making their most ambitious game yet. I'm pulling from Adam Bankhurst at IGN. Astrobot Rescue Mission and Astro's Playroom developer Team Asobi has launched a brand new website alongside teasing it is working on its most ambitious game yet. Team Asobi, which itself is a newly minted PlayStation studio, shared the news about its website on Twitter, and the site's About Us page reveals a bit more about the developer's mission and what it is currently working on. Quote, "Our latest works are the critically acclaimed Astrobot Rescue Mission for PSVR and Astro's Playroom for PS5. We're currently hard at work on our most ambitious game yet," end quote. While there have been no details officially revealed as to what this ambitious game is, the current job openings give us a little hint as to what may be going on behind closed doors in Tokyo. For example, the job listing for a game designer position reveals that this person's role will be to quote, make a variety of levels for a 3D action game, each providing great tempo and creative situations, end quote. The job listing for an environment artist requires someone who is able to put, quote, an emphasis on realistic texturing techniques applied to a playful art style, end quote. Another job listing for an animator may give those wanting another game starring Astro some hope, as Team Asobi is looking for an artist who can, quote, animate a wide range of cartoony mechanical characters, props, and vehicles used in game, end quote. Greg, does that sound like Astrobot to you?
Yes.
Are you
excited?
This is one that has changed my mind in terms of what I thought the next Astrobot game or Astrobot project was going to be, because I had resigned myself on being a pessimist because I couldn't take the hurt of wanting and hoping for a full-fledged Astrobot game and getting another tech demo. And so for me, I've always just told myself, hey, the next Astrobot is going to be, it's going to be a tech demo like Astro's Playroom, and that's gonna be how they treat Astrobot. Reading through this has me convinced that, okay, cool, it's going to be a full-fledged game, because they say it's their most ambitious game yet, and that makes it more ambitious than Astrobot Rescue Mission, which was a full game, and I'm very excited about it, and I do hope that I wouldn't be mad if it was a VR game, but I want it badly to be a console game. I want it to be a PS5 traditional console game. But I wouldn't be super mad if it was VR.
Yeah, you would. You'd be disappointed. You'd be disappointed.
I'd be a little bit disappointed, but I mean, it's still more Astrobot, and I own VR, and I'm gonna own VR too, and so I'm gonna play it either way.
Yeah, no, you're definitely getting it and playing it no matter what, right? But it is this, what kind do you want? And I think this is, as usual, like the conversation we've had about so many different studios, whether it be Insom, whether it be somebody like Housemarque, right? Where it's like they had this breakout with Astro's Playroom, right? Where it was suddenly everybody got to see, oh, this is that Astrobot thing, Rescue Mission. Yeah, okay, whatever. And it's a VR thing. It was cool. People were talking about it being the Mario 64, right, of VR. And then to have, the PlayStation 5 arrives and has this thing in there that everybody's caught off guard with and loves. Like, now this is the time to capitalize on that and let Team Asobi really cement themselves as somebody making fucking amazing, platform exploration games, and let them get in there and do something crazy and cool with it. And like, I don't know, emphasis on realistic texturing techniques applied to playful art style, like whatever. I don't care. I'm just excited to see them grow and let them have this. I want them to have the full blown spotlight. I want them to make a quote unquote real game.
Now, the reason why I'm still on the fence in terms of VR, not VR, is if they're making this for the PS5 non-VR, who's working on VR games? Like, who's making a tentpole VR title for PlayStation?
You assume they're working with third parties would be the idea, right? They're doing more of these PlayStation partnerships with it. I mean, what is Pixel Opus doing, right? Like, Concrete Genie had the VR mode. Concrete Genie was a great game as well, but I could easily see you take a studio so artistically driven, right? And so ephemeral, right, in terms of the games they want to make and the experiences they want to provide. I could see you easily say, all right, cool, we have PlayStation VR 2 coming up. We want, obviously, first party games to be selling on this. What can we do with Concrete Genie's team? What would you guys want to do? What IP could you attach to that? Could you partner up with to make something cool with, right?
Also, because that Mouse game just got announced too, right? The sequel.
Mouse 2,
yeah. next Moss for sure. Yeah, like that's right there with it. And so like you'd imagine, Moss, of course, originally launched with an exclusive window on PlayStation VR. I'd assume you're going to see that again too, and I would think you'd be working with people like that. You know what I mean? In terms of like, all right, cool, let's get in there and see who's going. I don't think PlayStation. I've said this before. PlayStation usually not want to force the first parties to make stuff they don't want to make, and so like it's not going to be that they're going to go force Sucker Punch to make a Ghost thing. If the way it's always been explained to me, both by the bosses and then the employees I speak to, is that it is that joint thing of like, if they'll say we'd love some VR concepts if you're interested, and then people go and pitch that kind of stuff, right? And so you'd hope that if somebody's sitting there, they're looking for it, great. But I think with everything else you've seen, it would make more sense probably to second party it. Go get people who are making shit that's cool already and see if they want to make PlayStation shit.
Yeah, I hope that they put the PlayStation Studios stamp on it, which I'm sure they will. But when you look at the first party slate of studios they have, and if the thing for them is the fact that none of these first party studios are working on PlayStation VR games, for me that comes back to, okay, then why do VR? Like, why are you guys doing it then? Because if it's not, I guess you can sell third party and second party stuff on there, and you are going to sell units, but if you're not going to double down on it and treat it like PlayStation 5 core, then like, are you expending all this energy on it, but then letting it go the way of the Vita or of PlayStation Move or something that they're not really doubling down on? And with what PlayStation Studios is now, they can't have the best of both worlds, where it is cool, like we partnered with Firewalk, and Firewalk is going to make the next Firewall 0 Hour, right? Or we're partnering with X Studio and they're going to make a new Iron Man VR game. Like, I think you can still have that, but I just want there to be bangers on that platform. I think that's my main thing. And I think Pixelopus is a good poll. I wouldn't be surprised to see Media Molecule make a VR game that is maybe like taking a slice of the studio just to work on that. Maybe it is hey, we made this in Dreams and we're making a standalone VR title. Maybe that could be a really cool thing for them. And Insomniac also has multiple teams there, and they do have experience in VR. So like, there's still potential for more teams outside of Team Asobi to work on PSVR. But Team Asobi, I would say, was the best at doing PSVR. Like, sure, they made arguably the best PSVR exclusive game, which is going to be a big sacrifice for them on that platform to not have them make another one. But not by any means they're writing on the wall, though.
Agreed.
Greg, let's talk about, I got to skip through some of these because we talked about these in the main topic. Let's talk about Dreams, actually, since we're just on it. Dreams is getting 2 new original Media Molecule games. This is from Jordan Gerblick at Games Radar. And before I even read it, right, last week they did their Dreamscom thing, which was basically their own game showcase for projects that are being worked on in Dreams. There they announced multiple games, including Tren, An Ancient Dangers, A Bat Tale. Now I'm pulling from Jordan Gerblick's article. And Barry, I don't know if you saw this. I do have links.
No, I never see any links you ever put into the.
Listen,
into the doc.
He's getting saucy.
Listen,
you know what I mean?
Kevin never sees them, Barry, and I always forget that you're not Kevin.
I'm not.
I always forget
Kevin,
you're not Kevin.
Okay,
I just want to make sure.
Blessing. All right,
I just want to make sure.
Barrett, we're coming out
yeah.
of a bad relationship with Kevin.
I know.
All right, I'm sorry that don't get me wrong. I stopped a long time ago, but I'm sorry. Blessing keeps comparing you to his ex. All right, but like, you know what I mean. We're just not used to being loved this way.
If there is a link,
I've never been taken care of.
If there is a link 30 in the doc, 30 seconds before the show starts, I have it. If you add it after the show starts, Blessing, that's when I don't have it. Okay.
Fair play. Diving into Jordan Gerblick's article over at Games Radar, Dreams is getting 2 new Media Molecule original games: the charming toy train track simulator Tren and the co-op fantasy adventure Ancient Dangers, A Bat's Tale. Both games were showcased as part of Dreamscom 2021 and will be free to all Dreams players at launch. Beachcore's Tren is inspired in more ways than one by the life of lead designer John Beach. The developer's real-life home, which is being renovated, was used as a rough template for the in-game space you'll use to build your fantasy toy train track. In a nutshell, Beach describes Tren as, quote, an escape room with toy trains, end quote. But just toy trains works too. Along with adorable toy trains, you'll also have the chance to play around with little helicopters, boats, and, quote, many other vehicles, end quote, which you'll use to complete delivery missions, rescue missions, speed challenges, and more. Or, if you'd rather just tinker with your toy train track, you'll have an array of interactive track pieces like seesaws, lifts, bridges, and turntables to experiment with. Beach says Tren is still a work in progress stage in development, but says his newly assembled Media Molecule dev team is working to launch it ASAP. Ancient Dangers, a bat's tale, is a third-person a fantasy adventure inspired by movies like Dark Crystal and Labyrinth, combined with the more gritty elements of Game of Thrones. Gameplay is seen through a top-down perspective and involves hack and slash, dungeon crawling, and puzzle solving. You can venture into dark and bat-infested dungeons on your own or team up with a friend for good old couch co-op play. But keep in mind that even co-op has some competitive elements. Gold and kill points aren't shared, so we'll be fighting each other to rank up the leaderboards. Ancient Dangers, a bat's tale, lead designer Rich Frank says the game is pretty much finished and due to launch this year in Dreams. And I absolutely love this. I like when Media Molecule does the original games. Tren to me was the standout one.
Hold on.
Go for it.
Arumaria writes into patreon.com/kindoffunnygames. It says 2 brand new PS first party games were announced last week, but they flew under the radar because they were announced at Dreamscom. What are your thoughts on Media Molecule's next games, Tren, and Ancient Dangers, a bat's tale? How do you feel about the strategy of releasing new first party games in Dreams? Blessing at AOA Junior, the floor is yours.
I think calling them new first party games is doing a little
stretch?
bit much. It's a stretch because to me this is another what was it called? I forget what the first like actual campaign that they put in Dreams is called that I really liked. But this is basically like another
Artstream, right?
Artstream, yeah. Artstream is the one that I really loved, and that was the one that they released at the launch of Dreams, and I really dug that. But this for me feels like more of a hey, us as Media Molecule prove how cool Dreams can be by releasing our own stuff that is going to be as quality as we can make it, or as cool or as different as we can make it, which is for me why I look at Tren as kind of the standout. Because for me, like Ancient,
you're watching that footage, it looks amazing.
Yeah, like Ancient Dangers of Bat Steel looks cool, but it is kind of a I've seen that kind of game in Dreams before, and I'm sure it being an original Media Molecule thing is going to make it more quality. And
I was going to say quality might be a bit higher.
Yeah, give it more TLC to it. But Tren is the one that I looked at, and I was like, see, this is what I like. This is something different, something that one comes from a place of being inspired by, hey, I'm modeling this after my apartment, and it is going to be a toy train game. I think it's a fun premise, but as it looks polished, it looks cool. I love the graphics on it. Like it looks like a fun game to jump in and play around with, even more so than something like Art's Dream, which felt very much like a showcase of these are the different things you can do in Dream. Because if you remember in Art's Dream was basically divided into multiple different kinds of games. Like you had the 3D platformer section, you had the adventure game section, you had multiple different types of things going in there. And Tren feels like very much I am as John Beach, the designer on it, I am focused on making this very specific type of game. Let me make this the best that I can. And watching the trailer, it looks fun, it looks interesting, and I'm really down for it. And I think I love that they're doing it. Back to the question from Arumaria, talking about it as a PlayStation first party thing. I do wish that, or I wish there was a way where PlayStation could take more ownership of it and be like, hey, you love Media Molecule. Media Molecule is putting out a new game, and it is a Dreams thing, and really promote it as that to get people in and get people interested. And whether that is releasing it for free on the PlayStation Store as a downloadable thing for anybody to play, so anybody can experience Dreams, or anybody can play this dream made by Media Molecule and frame it as a new game. I think there's something there, but it being Media Molecule talking about it mainly, and them being like, yeah, Dreamscom, which is this very specific thing that the Dreams audience is going to watch, them promoting it there and it living solely in Dreams is going to allow for way less people to get into it and be less of a conduit for the wider PlayStation audience to get into Dreams.
100%, right? That, I mean, you're talking to your audience, which is great, right? As always, right? The conversation goes of who are you trying? What are PlayStation's metrics for success on this game? What do they think is success? Then, yeah, for the Dreams team and for Media Molecule, who are you trying to approach and get this, right? So you have this hardcore community that's there for you, right? Obviously, you need to make content for them. You need to be supporting them. You need to have stuff for them to do. You need them to evangelize it outside of it. And so, yeah, to the question here of, how do you feel about their strategy of releasing new first-party games in Dreams? I love it. I think it's great. I think it's needed. You need bangers and tent poles, and you need reasons to turn on Dreams. That's
Yes.
and I know that sounds ridiculous because Dreams is amazing, and there are hundreds, if not thousands, of amazing games in Dreams right now that you could go play right once you buy it and you have all this different access. But the problem is that hundreds, if not thousands, of amazing games is completely overwhelming and just becomes a sea of content. And so, like, I go back to when Poe was visiting and I was like, oh, hey, there's all these co-op things we can play, right? And to go over Dreams, I was like, cool, this is Dreams, which is this basically creation suite, but there's all these, like, there's tons of cool things we could, like, it's such a nebulous idea that when are you in the mood to play that? And I find that even without Poe, as a single player gamer, of like, here's my 2 hours tonight to play video games. And I sit down and I'm like, what do I want to play? And I have all these known quantities of what this is, and then Dreams, which is the dice roll of I could find something amazing. I could play for 30 minutes and never find something that really clicks for me, right? And so you need these kind of experiences to say, hey, come turn on Dreams and play this thing. And then as soon as that ends, here what we're also recommending. Here's what you should go play next. Here's the video wall where Nick's picks or whatever of what you go do.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I mean, I think the analogy I'll give is you need a headliner, like at a comedy show where this last weekend I went to one of Nick's things, and anytime I go to a comedy show, there's always the headliner. Here is Dane Cook. I don't know why Dane Cook is the first comedian that came out. Here's Kevin Hart. Here's X, Y, and Z, big comedian that you love.
Gallagher.
You're showing up for it. Here's Gallagher that you're showing up for. Here's Cat Williams. And you have that, right? But that also is giving people, like, giving the audience this glimpse into all the comedians that are going up before that, right? That you get to be familiarized with X, Y, and Z comedian that isn't the headliner. You get to get more familiar with Nick Scarpino and get into his comedy and go, oh, who is this Nick guy? I'm gonna follow him on Twitter and get into it that way. I think for Dreams, you need headliners like this. And I don't know if they need to frame it differently or what, but my thing is, even though they announced these games at Dreamscom, and they seem like interesting games, I definitely want to try them out. I don't get the headliner feel from them. They aren't positioning them as these are the must-play games in Dream. I think Arch Dream was kind of positioned as that, but even that game did feel
tech demo-y
in the way that it was made to display, here are all these different things in Dreams. If Media Molecule can get certain headliner games in Dreams where it is, hey, these are some banger experiences that are standalone, that were made in Dreams, that do showcase what the game can do, but are more so fleshed out. Here are some games, or here's a cool art piece that like that is must play in Dreams if you're booting up Dreams. I think that gives people something more concrete to look forward to and makes it way less of an overall amorphous thing that you don't like. For me, I haven't booted up Dreams in months because I don't have a consistent thing pulling me in outside of wanting to check out games every now and then.
Exactly. And you need that window into what's happening. You need the window into what's hot, and you need it to be like, you need to speak loudly about it from the PlayStation side of it. PlayStation needs, if Ancient Dangers is the fucking jam, right? They need to cut a trailer as if that was a first party thing and really make that out to be that thing. And we're talking about like getting more people in, right? Of like, for PlayStation Plus that month, you drop Dreams, but you frame it around this game, Ancient Dangers, or something to that effect, to draw people in and then remind them the rest of it, right? Like, I think you see, and this is very in Greg's wheelhouse, obviously, but like you see it happening right now with the Black Panther War for Wakanda stuff for Avengers, where it's like when that comes out in 3 weeks, 2 weeks, whatever, 3 weeks, it's going to be very much framed around like, hey, world, there is a Black Panther game. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, you didn't even you didn't even turn it on this weekend, right? But like Hawkeye and Kate Bishop stuff isn't stuff you need to play through the entire campaign for. That's stuff that from the main menu you can select to go play those missions and you drop into them, right? Like, that's how they're going to explain this Black Panther stuff. Hey, War for Wakanda is out. It's whatever they're saying, 10 hours of content. Click on it and be Black Panther. Like, it's going to be like, hey, this game is a game into itself kind of thing. And I think that's what you need for Dreams too, of like, hey, we've made this amazing thing. Let's get everybody in the door to go play it.
Yeah. Yeah. And if they can have one of those like once every 4 months, right? Or once a quarter, or if there was a cadence of, hey, here's a new Dreams update, and the update is, here are all these development tools for creators, but then on the player side, here is this banger game made by Media Molecule that you all need to come and play. then I think that starts to build a narrative around dreams that gets people more consistently excited to go back. Like I would go back for that if they did that.
But and then to the point of what you were saying, this entire article, right? Like, this is no disrespect to Media Molecule. I look at Ancient Dangers and I look at Trend and I'm like, oh, those look cool. I don't know if I want to, if I, they're not like, oh my God, Trend just came out today. I need to stop everything and go play it kind of things. And that's like, it's great to see Media Molecule support it this way, to have them be like, yeah, no, we are making other experiences and games and putting them out there. But it is also like, okay, cool. To your point, like the Ancient Dangers looks like a lot of things I've seen in Dreams. Again, I'm sure the quality would be different, yada, yada, yada. But like, there's a lot of great things to play in Dreams. But like, do you want to go search them out and find it? And like, I know it's like, oh, there's lists and stuff like that. Yeah, but like, do you want to do the legwork for that? Like, you need like, so much of this is being told what's cool.
Exactly, and I'm gonna check out Trend because I think Trend does look cool. But I also know that not everybody's gonna think Trend looks cool, right? Most people who watch this are probably gonna be most people who watch this trailer probably are Dreams fans, but more like so many people are gonna watch it and go, oh, that looks cute, and then probably move on. And I think you do need stuff that is going to really highlight like, hey, no, like this is a dreams game, like you need to play this. And yeah, ancient Dangers of Bat's Tale is one for me that I look at that and again does look like a lot of other things I've seen in Dreams, but who knows, like maybe I'll jump into it and it might end up my game of the year, but that'd
be awesome. I hope that happens. You get there, you're like, you know what, my game of the year is a game inside Dreams.
I would love for a Dreams game to be my game of the year. I've gotten close a couple times, Greg. Let me tell you about this this driving game. I forget what it's called. Actually, it wasn't actually that. It wasn't Game of the Year quality, but I did like it a lot. Check out my Dreams video.
I enjoyed myself.
The Blessing Show. I one of the games I talked about in there was the driving game. Also, all the other games in there also good as well. Just watch the Blessing Show. Go back and give it views, please.
YouTube.com/kindoffunnygames.
Just want to bring back the Blessing Show. Give it the views it needs so I can bring it back. One more for PlayStation updates. PlayStation Now games for August have been announced. You're getting Nier Automata, Ghost Runner, and Undertale. A banger month for PlayStation Now games. I would say even more banger than PS Plus, which is not a pleasant surprise. Like not that like that's never happened before, but it on the Xbox side of things, we pay attention a lot to like the updates for games with gold versus Game Pass and all that stuff. And paying attention to it over the last year or so, there's been a very clear like games or Xbox Game Pass is getting the gold, whereas games with gold is getting like everything else, whatever they can scrap together. And so it's fun to see like on the PlayStation side, PlayStation Now getting some games that are actually some real bangers.
Sure.
But then like PlayStation Plus, it's fine. It's fine.
You want to play Hunter's Arena Legends? You've said that.
I'm gonna try it out, but only because it's PlayStation Plus.
Sure.
And it's a new game dropping on PlayStation Plus.
I have a question for you. This is I'm about to ask you what you've been playing, or we're doing PlayStation picks, but then we're gonna talk about what you've been playing. Yeah. So I'm putting it here. Anyone don't care. Are you still playing that early access? What was it? Arcadegeddon? What was it?
No,
the Ilphonic game, right?
Arcadegeddon. Yeah, Ilphonic. Yeah, I dropped off very quickly. I had a great weekend with that game, but the progression in it just isn't there for me to want to go back to it. Like I don't like there aren't interesting cosmetics in there. It is very early access still in terms of what you're unlocking, and so I had a fun weekend with it, playing with friends, but I didn't feel compelled whatsoever to keep playing just because I didn't know what I was working towards anymore.
Sure. Okay. Fair enough. Yeah. I remember you wrote into PS I Love You after you played that thing. And then but it's that weird thing where that game, early access now. And then I've heard nothing about it from anyone. You know what I mean? Like in follow-ups or anything else and talking about it.
I hope when it comes out, it's at a great place because I would go back to it. If at their final release, they're like, we've updated it with so much content and we've polished it up quite a bit, I would 100% jump back into it because I think it's a fun setup and premise for a game, and the actual execution in terms of the gameplay stuff and the roguelike mechanics are there. Like I did have fun just going through the combat rooms with friends and taking out enemies and upgrading my guns and finding loot. It is a fun one, especially if you like games like Risk of Rain or even if you like Returnal and want something that's similar but with co-op. It has a lot of promising stuff there, but by final release, I think it just has to get itself together in terms of content to really stand out and be worth checking out.
Okay.
Greg, let's talk about PlayStation picks. Of course, this is where we highlight a few of the cool looking games coming to PSN this week. In terms of big hitters, right, you're getting Apex Legends Emergence, which is the new update that's coming Tuesday, August 3rd. Also getting Hunter's Arena Legends. That is the battle royale, like melee battle royale PvP game, coming to PS Plus Tuesday, August 3rd. And then the Falcon.
Do you have any hype level? I mean, I know you're saying you're only going to play because it's on PS Plus, right? But it is this battle royale fighting game, right? Which does sound neat. Like, do you have hope, expectation, excitement for it?
Not really, because the trailer for it that they had at State of Play, I just looked very generic. And there are also other similar types of games coming out, like soonish. Like Naraka Blade Point isn't too far away. That's coming out in August, and it's a similar kind of thing. And there are a few other melee based fighting game quote battle royales that have been announced that look more interesting as well. But Naraka Blade Point being a little bit further out, and this being a PS Plus game, and there not also being like too much that's launching this week, gives me space to want to at the very least try it out, and maybe hope, fingers crossed, that it is way more fun than I expected it to be. And so that's the main reason for me. But and also just for me as somebody who likes battle royale and fighting games, you know, I want to check it out for that. But that's coming out, and then also the Falconeer is coming out to PS5 and PS4 on Thursday, August 5th. It's kind of a light release week, but in terms of PlayStation picks, you're getting Dodgeball Academia coming to PS4 on Thursday, August 5th. Dodgeball Academia is a sports RPG game featuring rookie dodgeball student Otto. Join Otto and an eclectic cast of characters as they train to dominate on and off the courts of the academia. And the best way I can describe this one is it seems like maybe a mixture of Knockout City with a very Cartoon Network kind of art style to it. That gives me some vibes of something like Golf Story, where you're exploring a world, talking to characters, seems to have some fun humor in it. Looks interesting. I got the code for it. I want to try it out. And I'm hoping that this is a fun one, because it does the art style does look cool.
For me, watching it looks like one of those that could go either way. Where I think the art style looks cool. I think it looks really cute, and it's like it's either something I could see getting into or it just not hitting. Like, do you know, is it turn based? How do you know how the dodgeball mechanics actually work in it?
I'm not actually super positive how it works. Right. Like to give people the picture who are listening to the audio, right? Like it is people on opposite sides of a dodgeball court actually throwing dodgeballs at each other. Unlike Knockout City, where you're running all around just finding people to pummel with a dodgeball. But it does look like it's live. Like it looks like they're running around in the gameplay that Barrett was showing.
And for the audio listeners, it's art style is very specifically like what was it, World of Gumball or whatever the hell that show is.
Yes,
it's got that kind of vibe there.
Here's what I'm going to read. I'm going to read the key features. This is off the Nintendo page, but they apply, obviously. Okay. Explore and uncover the secrets of the Dodgeball Academia across a vast, diverse, and full of life campus. Journey through a full-blown RPG story mode, complete with episodes, main quests, side quests, and school minigames. Unlock and upgrade unique characters, diversifying your dodgeball team through an RPG-style character and party progression. Engage in action-packed dodgeball matches featuring a unique fighting game style that will put you up against challenging enemies and bosses. Duke it out with a friend locally in competitive local versus mode.
Oh, you guys want to play some? Wait, it said local.
Yeah.
Did it not say online?
No.
Oh, never mind. I was gonna say you guys want to play some dodgeball, but I guess we'll just play some Knockout City then.
It's that thing where it does sound cool,
right?
Remember when we were supposed to play,
and it looks cool.
Remember when we were supposed to play Knockout City last week, Bless?
I do remember. We should pick up. We should pick it up because I do want to check out that new update. Also, there's a new update live for Knockout City. I don't think we talked about that.
Season 2, what started last week? I think
last week. Yeah. I think the thing, Greg, for me is that I look at the gameplay and I'm like, either this is really fun or it plays like a Flash game or a mobile game. Like that's the thing I can't parse out by just watching it. And so I definitely want to check it out. And I didn't realize it was on Switch. I got the code for PlayStation.
Yeah, this definitely feels like a Switch game.
This looks
like
it
looks like a Switch game, right? And not like it just seems like something I could see me playing on.
Just out wherever.
Play
a few minutes.
Blessing then.
Yes, Greg.
It's time for what you've been playing. You have not been playing Dodgeball Academia.
No, I've not.
What's your problem?
Do you want to hear what I've been playing?
I do want to hear what you've been playing because I need to hear how this finished. You started playing the Forgotten City. You were talking to me about like, oh, I really like it. It's cool. It's doing this. And like now you're done with it. I saw you tweet about it.
Yeah. So I beat the Forgotten City. I talked about it on a little bit on the KFD post show. And I don't think most people have heard me talk about it yet. But I have been tweeting about it. I really like this game. It is one that I talked about. Was it last week? Now that I've been away for multiple PSLWs, I never know when I've actually been on. Last time I was on the show, I talked about it for PlayStation Picks, and if you remember, the whole thing about it was that it started off as a Skyrim mod years and years ago, and it released, and it actually got rewards for its narrative as a Skyrim mod. Like, people were actually very impressed by how good it was. And now we have the full game. It came out last week on PlayStation and other platforms. And based on the conversation we had on PS Love You, I actually convinced myself that I wanted to check it out, because the more I thought about it, the more I talked about it, I was like, shit, this seems kind of cool. Because if you remember, the whole thing with it is that it is this deduction mystery game where you go into this old ancient Roman city, right? Like, you get transported back in time to this city, and you learn that this ancient Roman city has this thing called the golden rule. And what it is if one person commits a sin and breaks the golden rule, then the whole city and town suffers for the sin of the one, right? And so, like, chaos happens, people die, everything goes to shit if one person in this town commits a sin. And so you're brought back into time to basically play detective and figure out who is the person that's going to commit the golden sin, or who's going to break the golden rule in this city. And so you go around and you talk to different characters. It plays kind of like a Bethesda game in terms of the dialogue trees and how the characters look and how they even turn to the camera and engage in dialogue. It feels very Bethesda, which I like a lot, because I really like those like classic Bethesda games, specifically like Fallout 3 and Fallout 4, Skyrim, like, were all my jam. And so it kind of plays like that, even in the movement, and when you pick up items, like, it all kind of plays like that, but it is way more narrative focused, and so it doesn't have a big focus on combat. There's like a little bit of combat in there, here and there, but it is mainly a narrative game where you are talking to characters, trying to figure out who you're going to accuse, and engaging in the story, which has some really, really cool and interesting twists and turns to it that got me in. Like, I think the best way for me to describe it would be, it's like the mechanics of a Bethesda game mixed in with the detective work of a Paradise Killer. If you played Paradise Killer last year, where it's like a Danganronpa trying to figure out the mystery of this thing, mixed in with the time loop mechanics of an Outer Wilds, right? Where it is in the game, you engage in a time loop thing, and you use information from previous time loops to help you out in future time loops, so that can help you solve the mystery. It feels like a mixture of all that, and it works out so well. Like, I really enjoyed my time playing this game.
How long is it?
It's like 8 hours. I think what I've seen most people talk about in articles and social media, they estimate around 10 hours. I think for me, it probably took around 8 hours, because I beat it over the course of a Friday and Saturday. Like, I started it on a Friday, played a few hours, got into it, and then on Saturday just sat down and really played it, and, like, you know, made my way through most of the game, and kind of got addicted to it. Like, it's one of those narratives where I've seen people online talking to me about it on Twitter and stuff, saying that, yeah, I beat this game in 2 sittings just because I couldn't stop playing it. Yeah. Really cool characters. Like, it takes place in a small city, and so you have probably like 20 characters in this game, maybe 20 something characters in this game that you're interacting with and learning their stories. And it very much leans on the scripting of the characters and how you kind of understand, like, each character's role in this world, to kind of help you understand, like, okay, what is this mystery? How do I, like, what is going on with each of these characters? And I think it's done pretty masterfully. It reminds me almost of a Majora's Mask in terms of the loops that each character plays. And so, like, you come back to a second loop and you're like, cool, I know this person's story, I know this person's role in the world. Okay, I know what they're up to. Let me go talk to this person. Oh shit, this person is up to this thing, which means that this person must be responsible for this thing.
So it's like a narrative roguelite, like Deathloop.
No. I mean, yes and no. Like, it's not a roguelike because it's not randomized and there's no combat, really, or there's not that much combat and all.
I was gonna say, what? So is gameplay just talking? It's just a talking game?
It's like it's talking, but it also has RPG elements to it, because you have questing. And so basically, when you talk to certain characters, in fact, when you talk to most characters in this game for the first time, you might unlock a lead which is basically the game's equivalent of a quest, where it is,
Okay.
say you talk to the caregiver slash medical person in the village or in the town, and they're like, hey, I need your help. This person is sick. I need you to go get medicine from this other character. In doing that, that then opens up a quest line. And then you go and talk to that character that might have the medicine, and you talk to them, and they're like, hey, I have this medicine. It's going to cost you 2,000 currency to buy this medicine, which is way overpriced. It's way more currency than you'd ever have.
Sure.
And then you have the option of being like, all right, like, do I want to go around this town and figure out how to get more money? You know, maybe you can find a stash of money and then abuse the loop so that you keep going back to that stash of money so they can get enough money to then buy the medicine for the person. Or maybe you want to risk it. Maybe you want to steal the medicine, but stealing is a sin. Does that activate the golden rule?
Are you the one who breaks it? You're the one who,
you know, are you the
everything
one,
in hell?
But like that's the interesting thing about the game, because maybe, you know, maybe you're the one that breaks it. Maybe it's like an infinite, like, fucked up thing of, oh, you got brought back. Oh, that fucked up everything because you're the one. Or, you know, maybe there's more to it. Like, you know, it's those types of questions that the game continually brings up, and I think has very, very fascinating definitive answers to that. I really dug how the game tackled its own setup in that. And again, like, lots of twists and turns. You know, when I talk about combat, the game gives you a bow and arrow they can use at a certain point, and I've seen some critiques that the combat is kind of clunky. I don't think it's a problem because there's very minimal combat in the game. Like, there's only a few combat sections that you ever engage in within the 8 hours, and so I never found that to be an issue. But yeah, there was one other thing I wanted to mention about the game. I already forgot what it was. But like, this game made me check out Outer Wilds. That's another thing about this game.
What?
Yeah. So
like,
like,
you finished this and you wanted more, like, talking.
Yeah.
What's going on? Mysteries.
So this game does a lot with time loops, and I found that I really enjoyed the loop of going into multiple loops, learning more about the world each loop, and then using that information to then either, you know, take an item into the next loop and use that to my advantage, or use your knowledge that you learned in a previous loop and use that to try and discover the mystery. And Outer Wilds is very much that game. Like, trying out Outer Wilds in 2019, I got into it at first, but then fell off multiple times because the game just seemed so amorphous and so like open and weird, and I couldn't wrap my mind around actually solving anything in Outer Wilds, because Outer Wilds, the whole thing in there is that you are a spaceman basically who is traveling to different planets, you're a spaceman traveling to different planets, launching off, and trying to understand why you're stuck in this loop. And you are doing the same thing, which is using the information based off of previous explorations in loops and trying to take that and thwart whatever is going on in future loops. Outer Wilds seems way more open and less structured than Forgotten City. Forgotten City feels very structured in that. Outer Wilds feels very much like, hey, good luck. You can talk to characters, you can read weird writings on walls, you can discover weird tapes that are left behind by a previous group of people, you can run into a creature, you can do tons of things in Outer Wilds that I think all connects with each other, but because everything you're finding in Outer Wilds feels so different from the next thing you're finding, I'm still at the point where I don't know how to connect a lot of shit, but it seems like almost like a way more advanced Forgotten City in that way, where Forgotten City was very much focused on narrative and the story it's telling. Outer Wilds has narrative there, but the way you're interacting with the world is way more based on these weird scientific discoveries. Oh shit, there's this weird thing going on this planet. This planet has weird symbols on it. This planet has this tape on it. How do these things all connect with each other? And for me, playing Outer Wilds so far, I'm now probably 4 hours into it. I feel like I'm turning into a madman trying to figure out.
Scribbles? Do you have the diary of a madman?
I have the diary. I'm taking notes. I'm doing all this shit. None of that shit I was doing during Forgotten City, but Outer Wilds is pushing me to another level of being obsessive about what does this all mean. And I'm enjoying it for that. But it was the Forgotten City that ignited that fascination of being like, shit, I really dug this in the Forgotten City. Is this what I'm missing out of the Outer Wilds? Let me check out Outer Wilds. And now in this latest playthrough, enjoying it a lot more.
Another roguelike that you really love. You know?
Another roguelike.
I just want it on the record. I don't think these games are actually roguelikes. I'm just making fun of the people who really want to put Deathloop in the category of a roguelike.
It's not. The thing that makes a roguelite this whole conversation, I'm sure we'll talk about that someday.
Oh, you're definitely gonna have that conversation.
We're gonna have that conversation.
There's no difference between roguelike and roguelite, and none of it matters.
Forgotten City sounds awesome. You sold me on it. I want to try that. Like just a talkie, figure out what's going on thing, time loops. That sounds dope as hell. Yeah.
I think you dig it as somebody because you look for a narrative a lot of the time out of your games, and Forgotten City I'd say is one of my favorite narratives this year so far in a video game. Like it really has, I think, fun things to say about, and this is what I wanted to say before that I forgot. Like it touches a lot on morality and what constitutes as a sin, and when you have this awesome. It very much it feels like you're playing a social experiment game where it's a bunch of people are trapped in this city and they've created civilization, and like
no pressure.
One person is in charge and they've orchestrated this rule, and people don't know if the rule is real or not, but they're just going with it.
Everything works so far, why screw with it, right?
Exactly. And like what happens when you're in those conditions, and I think it explores that in ways that I really dug. And so I'd recommend anybody check it out if that sounds up your alley.
All right, hell yeah. It was something you teased at the top of the show. Now it's the last segment of the show, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, all I played this weekend, all I've played is Avengers since we last talked.
Hell yeah! So with the latest update, like I know there's 4 XP. I know, or there was 4 XP.
Yeah,
this weekend and all that stuff. Did they add? Like, what else did they add beside that?
So the big addition, right, was last week they added an Omega threat level mission, which is their first piece of actual, like, all right, cool, you're max level, like, let's give you something that's incredibly hard that you need to actually work with your friends on and do stuff. We kind of got a taste of it with this Monica mission, the Sorcerer or Scientist Supreme, a couple, June was that dropped or whatever, where it was we needed to coordinate, you need to talk it through, but it was like doable, whereas this is one that there's a whole spectrum for this one. Paul Tassi has a great article up, opinion piece up, I should say, on Forbes. That is, the title is super damning, and I don't fully agree with, but it's the Omega threat level mission is the worst piece of content Avengers has added to the game. And it's not that it's broken like stuff was in the beginning of the game or like that. It's the fact that it's in this weird spot where you have this game, right, that so many of us love or like or whatever have enjoyed. And you have this group of audience members that beat this campaign, maybe took their characters to 150 and then kind of bounced on it and came back for like the Kate DLCs or random stuff like that, but didn't play it over and over again. So, I'm somewhere in between the two groups where I've come back a bunch and played it enough, but I've never been grinding for stats or grinding for gear or worrying about, how much melee damage am I doing? How much rain damage am I doing? And so that's a lot how my crew is in general, where we've enjoyed playing this stuff together and, not worrying about that jazz. And then this thing drops and it isn't just the normal, you're 150. It is like, you need to be doing DPS. Like this thing, it will keep spitting out waves, this boss. And if you don't KO him, the waves will just overwhelm you and you'll be destroyed. So there's this spectrum where there's people who are just like, oh man, I can't do enough DPS to it. And then there is the incredibly hardcore community that never stop playing every week, every day, and goes in there and beats it in 20 seconds. Like just obliterates it because they're jacked through the roof or whatever. And so it's this weird thing of you're asking like, what's the new content or whatever? That was the new content last week, but then this weekend was the free weekend where if you were on PlayStation or PC, you could play for free the whole thing, get in there and experience it. And that includes all the DLC they've done so far, the Kate and Clint missions. But then it was also, 4 times XP. So it was a lot of people coming back who are for sure going to be playing Black Panther in 3 weeks. It was a lot of people coming back just because they wanted to see what had been added to it. It was people trying for the first time. And then there was my crew, which because one of the things they've added since launch or even in recent months, right, is this champion XP system. So before it was you play up to level 50, bam, all right, cool, you're level 50. Now it's all about your gear score. All right, cool, you've hit 150. Now it's about min maxing if you want to grind out exotics, if you want to grind these missions, if you want to go do shit like that. They added in Champion XP, which is now refreshing the thing where you now keep leveling up through your XP, and then you get these champion points that you can then go apply to skill trees that get you, it goes up the more you go, but it's like 3%, melee damage, another 3%. You keep going down this chain, right? More range damage, a better chance for getting critical hits, right? Like it's a new set of skill trees that you can fill in with these champion points and make your character, your end game character, even more powerful. And so this is a long way of saying that, like when Avengers originally came out in my crew of Andrew, Sean, Tam, Fran, Simon, we were all playing. There was this conversation at the time of like, oh man, like these usually aren't our kind of games where we're not grinding people, right? Like it's, I was like, it's a rare thing like Division or DC that'll see me grind out. And why would I ever grind in this game? And like Sean was like, I will never grind in this game. Yada, yada, yada. It's like, why would you do that? And so you cut to last week on Tuesday, right? They dropped the Omega threat level. We decided we're going to play at 7:00 so Sean on the East Coast can do it. We got all together, we got in there, and we were playing and we were communicating, and like we made sure Goldfarb was there as a healer, and we're doing all the stuff that like I tweeted about it, right? Like these are the conversations I expected to be having in October about Marvel's Avengers, but here I am now in July finally having them or whatever, these text threads of assigning whose character and what you're going to do and what your thing will be. And so like we played through the first part, and there's all these countdowns and timers and different enemies and objectives now to do, and it was great and it was fun, and you had to communicate, and we're having a great time, and we're laughing and having a ball. And then we got to the boss of the mission, the Omega threat level, super adaptoid, right? And it was like, this is night one, so like there are no strats out and nobody really knows what's going on. And so we went at it with this thing, Bless, and we played, the grand total of what we played that night was like 3.5 hours, 3 hours or whatever, like very raid-like, you know what I mean? But we probably got to the super adaptoid within, I don't even know, 30, 40 minutes. And then the rest was just retrying this boss over and over and over again. And it was like that thing of, in the beginning, I don't know how you feel about these kind of things, or like raid level bosses or something like that. Like there's that part of the enjoyment of them is the punishment of them, of like, oh man, that's on me. I fucked that up. I should have done this. I didn't do that. Or man, what I'm doing. Sorry, go ahead.
Just trying to be perfect, basically.
Like, and like, what I mean? Like, okay, that, you go in and you're like learning what they're doing in their wave. Like how are they attacking, or what are they about to do? They start doing a new move. You're like, what the fuck's going on? It's what we loved about the Monica fight, where it was like, she kept insta-killing people, and it was like, what are we supposed to do? And then you discovered, hide behind these pillars kind of thing. So we went into this and we're going. And about an hour and a half in, like of fighting the boss, so like 2 hours in, like Fran said something to me like, oh man, what do you think, Greg? And I'm like, guys, like it breaks my heart to say it, but like we're not going to do this. Like we're not the best we've done is gotten the super adaptoid to halfway. Maybe it was a little past halfway. I'm like, we're just not getting it done. And because like the waves they start deploying, Bless, is like, it splits into 2 more super adaptoids, and then it's dropping turrets that are sucking out your superpower and yada yada. It's like, we're just not doing enough damage to burn this thing to get it done. And everyone's like, no, you're wrong. We'll get on the next one. And then like an hour and a half later, like, all right, cool. Yeah, you're right. We can't do this. Right. Wow. And
you guys were leveled up, right? Like you guys were all the way leveled.
Yeah. But again, it's what I'm talking about, right? Where there's this chasm of, we thought we were all the way leveled, but we're not. We weren't doing the champion levels yet. We hadn't, I mean, I had champion level 5 at the time, maybe, or something like that, which is nothing. There's all these like little things of like, I hadn't been running the weeklies for exotics, because again, this goes back to my point of like, what am I doing this for? And again, to for all the stones you want to justifiably throw at Avengers, like this makes sense, right? Of like, why would I be coming here every week since September to finally get to use this stuff in July? I'd be pissed, honestly. You know what I mean? Where it's like, no, it seems like a waste of my time on what I'd be doing for it. And so now that there's this thing, though, it was that, quadruple XP drops. We're all excited to play. I pop on Friday or Thursday when it started. Like you had mentioned earlier, like we already had an Avengers. We have an Avengers text message thread where we talk about the game. Then we have this PSN group that I was like, oh, I added you in, I added Yusef in, I added Lauren in last night. Like anybody who's like, oh, I'm going to try it this weekend. Khalif was playing for a little bit with us. It was adding these people in. And again, to what I love about the new PlayStation Party system, which is not, I know it's controversial, not everybody loves it. I do love this open chat line thing it does. So it was over the weekend, like you're talking about that. I'm doing something else, but I look at my phone and I see Goldfarb started a chat, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, him and Cardi are playing. And you knew that, all right, cool. If you wanted to play, you could jump on and play with them right there. You know what I mean? You could see who was going, just hang out with each other. But it was this amazing thing Thursday night of signing on to actually get some more of this XP and get working on it, right? I want to buff up this character. I want the champion levels. I want to go back and kick the shit out of this super adaptoid. on there was Sean, the guy I was telling you earlier, who, you know, back in September was like, oh, I don't play these kind of games. I'm not a grinder or whatever. I'm like, all right, man, what have you been doing? He's like, oh, well, I found out on the subreddit that there's this mission for Black Widow that you can sub in a new character for, and then you can go in and immediately fight a different Adaptoid, and that Adaptoid will give you 6,000 XP. And so you just, after you beat it, you reload the checkpoint, you just do that over and over again. And I'm like, how long have you been doing this? He's like, I've been doing this for 2.5 hours.
Oh my God.
That set the pace, I think, for the weekend. Like you know, I know that a lot of my stuff always is Greg Miller, the character, and me being amped up and yada, yada. Everyone knows that I truly do. I enjoy Avengers, obviously. Like, I legit love this game. And this weekend probably was the most fun I've had in video games in 2021. And again, this goes back to Janet Garcia a couple weeks ago with we're talking about House of Ashes, when I was like, oh, it's, you know, fun because I was playing with Poe and beer. And she's like, well, is the game fun or is Poe and beer fun? Like, right now, this carrot on the stick of I've finally been presented with a challenge in Avengers that we can't overcome, right? And so my entire team was out there this weekend putting in work and grinding on this thing and trying to get up this and looking at stats and talking about damage builds, and like, I'm keeping this piece of armor and I'm going to bring it up so that when I need to run ranged, I can run range on this and yada, yada, yada. And it was this renaissance. Maybe this is a flash in the pan for the weekend though, but of like, everyone being on, everyone wanting to throw down, everyone getting excited, of course, because again, the War for Wakanda drops in 3 weeks, right? So it's like, even right now without the XP last night, you know, me and Goldfarb were talking as I was on the voice chat by myself grinding that stupid Adaptoid from earlier Sean mentioned of getting the XP so I had to get as much as I could. Like, him and I were talking and it's like, cool, like, yeah, quadruple XP is over, but like, you bet your ass we're getting on tonight because we still have this other thing to do. And then it's like, we're trying to plan for this week of when we are going back to the Super Adaptoid for the first time since the Tuesday beatdown, right? Like coming in with our real build, our real thing, and a plan for how to beat it. And like, that's awesome. Like, you know what I mean? It's so much fun that we have this crew that wants to play. It's been so cool showing people the ropes again. It's been, you know, this goes back to, you know, that joke I made on Gamescast, right? Of one of my predictions is that by the end of the year, Imran would say, Avengers is pretty good. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this was a weekend of, man, this is, for us fans of the game, really good. Like, this is awesome. I'm having so much fun. You know, we're talking about cosmetics. We're arguing about the MCU. We're just bullshitting around with our friends and playing it. But it is the experience we had at launch that I haven't had since, what, October maybe? You know what I mean? Early October, of us all being there. Everybody's into it. You're all doing something. It was fantastic. It filled my cup so much in terms of like excitement and energy, not only for the game, but for playing with your friends.
Yeah. Yeah, I know the answer is probably yes, but do you think for me as a newcomer, not necessarily to the game because I played the campaign, but for multiplayer and leveling up and all that stuff, it's worth getting into from the ground floor? Like, do you think I'd have fun doing that initial grind to level up my character if I wanted to do that before the Black Panther update?
Well, yeah, so it's a great question, and obviously you can't speak for everybody, and so it's really comes down to what turns you off about the game before. What on Gamescast, when you were like, I'm just looking to grind and be a superhero, right? Like, I talked to you afterwards through Slack or whatever, and I was like, listen, like, I hear you, and I that's obviously what Marvel Heroes was for me forever, and for a while it's what Ultimate Alliance was, and now with Avengers it's a different kind of thing, and I'm back on the grind now, but so if that's what you're going for, I think it works. And with the excitement of it and the way they have the game fleshed out right now, especially with this Champion XP stuff, right? Like, I think you would, because it would be that you hop in and you have missions to do to, you know, get through the early part of, you know, being this multiplayer thing that I Goldfarb and I can play with you. And we're not feeling like we're not getting anything done because we're still earning the XP that goes into our Champion XP system. Yeah, you're not, you know, playing a high level, whatever thing that's going to get you an exotic, but that's not what it's all about, right? It is about also going through and getting resources. So when Black Panther drops, you can do this, or when, you know, like right now it's this idea of like, you know, the early part of that game and leveling was so much about hoarding resources of like, all right, cool. Like, I want to try to get to everybody to 150, which meant I'm going to need all these upgrade modules and all this polychoron and yada, 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 especially when you're like, we need to do it smartly so that like, if, you know, you're going to play your main and your cap, I'm a cap main, but if you're also a cap main, I want to be able to fall back to somebody else and yada, yada, yada. And like, that's been removed now because you can play as many versions of the character. You know, you can be 4 Captain Americas, you can be 4 Thors, it doesn't matter. And so now it is this idea of like, freewheeling spending that of like, oh man, this is an interesting piece of gear. I wonder what'll happen when I level it all the way up, and sitting there and just leveling it up and be like, okay, cool. And like, that burns resources that then me playing and getting drops and, you know, recycling them or whatever actually gives me back the resources for it.
I'm excited to try it out again.
Yeah.
Because I don't think I've played it since last year when they put out the PS5 update for it. And I don't even think I actually played the PS5 update. I think I went in, booted it up so I could transfer my save, and then logged out with plans of playing it. I don't even think I actually touched it again. So it's been a long time, and so I'm sure by now there have been plenty of updates to it that I wouldn't like. I mean, my main issue at launch, I think, was mainly the fact that I didn't love how the game played, and it seemed like getting into multiplayer and actually like the getting into the load times and matchmaking and all that stuff was still in a place of being not great. And I don't know if they fixed that specifically,
Dude,
but I'm
load
sure.
times are fucking non-existent on PS5.
Oh, thank God.
Like there's like that was the
Because
thing of
being
like
a problem.
I over the weekend on the Kind of Funny subreddit, somebody wrote in and was like, "Hey man, I'm playing Avengers because it's free weekend. Everybody talks about it. Man, these load times suck." And the person was on PlayStation 4, and I was like, "Oh right, I haven't thought about that." Meanwhile, for us, for me, it's like, cool. I'm gonna cheese this thing to grind out XP against this Adaptoid or whatever, right? And it would be like beat them, pause, restart checkpoint, and it's immediate. I'm right to the thing again. So it wasn't ever like I'm looking at my phone during a load or something like that. No, it's right into it.
Because a lot of what you're describing reminds me of what I really enjoyed playing Destiny 2 for that 1 month that I played Destiny 2, where, I went through the campaign, really enjoyed it, played so much PvP, did the Leviathan raid, and it was it was probably one of the best gaming experiences doing multiplayer that I can remember, because I hadn't played many quote unquote games as service games that were these live, I'm gonna level up my character, I'm gonna find the best gear. Like that wasn't those weren't the type of games I gravitated toward at the time, but I had such a good time playing Destiny 2 for that one time that I wouldn't like I if I jumped into Marvel's Avengers this month, and even if I played it just for a few days during this week or maybe the week, and then hop back into it during Black Panther and played that for a week, then that would be a success for me if I enjoyed that time with it. And so I might try it out just for that, because it reminds me of what I love about playing that game, and even what I love about playing GTA Online as well, where I just go in and have fun with friends and fuck around and make money, or try to help another friend make money, and try to level up in my car auto shop stuff, and doing that specifically like that. For me, that's what makes these types of games click, is when I love the Janet question of, is the game fun or is hanging out with your friends fun? And I love when both of those things unite together, where it is, oh yeah, like the game is fun, but doing all this mindless stuff that is scratching that itch that I have for grinding and for leveling up and for finding good gear and all that stuff aligns with hanging out with friends and bullshitting and maybe streaming and having an audience to interact with and all that stuff. That stuff for me makes that experience super fun, and I'd be down to try it with Avengers and see if that actually clicks for me this time.
Yeah, I'd say give it a shot. Obviously, I mean, I love the game, so it's whatever. But it is like, like the combat I do really enjoy, and I know so many people don't. So like, I enjoy like stringing together a combo and having all these different, buffs on the side that I've executed because of combos or whatever. There, like, if people want it to be button mashing, it can be button mashing and just be that. But if you're actually trying to time out what you're doing or where you're going with something, it can be different too. But
what characters have they added since launch? I know they added two Hawkeyes.
The two Hawkeyes, yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Black Panther will be the third. Yeah. You're not behind on that at all. No. You got Kate, you got Clinton. That's it. Yeah.
But they have
that's the thing
with them too, though, right?
Oh yeah. They have episodes. Okay. Well, yeah, that's the total thing of like, it's. Again, the way that I was talking earlier, if you're not familiar with it, of Dreams is like, you start it up and it's like, cool. Do you want to play the mission? Do you want to go into multiplayer? But you can also just jump straight to the Kate storyline. You can play through that. You can jump right to the Clint thing and play through that. And that's how it'll be for Black Panther too. So it's it's interesting if you want to jump in and get your feet wet and get going and like get a feel for it. But you could also just wait till Black Panther drops on the 17th and just drop in there and play through his story. And it's also fucking awesome now because again, like this game's the core issue of this game, right? Of like it being the single player and multiplayer thing of like when Kate and Clint dropped and those were new operations out there, you bet your ass we were all playing them that first weekend and we weren't playing together because only one of us could be Kate or Clint. So it's like, I'll play through the campaign and then if I really like it, I'll come back, and you just didn't do it. Whereas like now with like Black Panther Tuesday, right? It's going to be that everybody's playing it and it's like, cool, oh, I'm an hour ahead of you, I'll double back and play with you and we can play through together, right? And you run the same missions. There'll be multiple Black Panthers, but whatever.
Be like Outriders.
Exactly. Ladies and gentlemen, This has been another episode of PS I Love You XOXO. Remember, the show's not over. You can go to patreon.com/kindafunnygames where we're going to do a post show, probably a bit short because we went really long today. But hey, you get me going about Avengers. I can't stop. Remember, if you like PlayStation, you like us. This, of course, is Kinda Funny's PlayStation podcast. We post each and every Monday. We record it live. Patreon.com/kindafunnygames. Of course, it'll go up later on YouTube.com/kindafunnygames, roosterteeth.com, and podcast services around the globe each and every Tuesday morning, 6 a.m. It's got ads. It doesn't have the post show, but it's still a good time. For now, we're going to keep talking over on patreon.com/kindafunnygames. But until next time, it's been our pleasure to serve you.